Good morning, everybody. Yay, I have an interactive crowd. I love it. Because I don't like to be left hanging. So I will say welcome to the second Blackening Care Conference. Yep, go on. The first one happened in 1984. And we'll talk more about that later on in the day. But this is the second one after so many years. And it's about time, I think. I think we all think it's about time. So thank you for all coming along to our second Blackening Care Conference, where we aim to maybe have more conferences after this. We'll see how it goes. So just going to do a bit of housekeeping. Oh, my name's Judith Denton, and I'm the founder of the second Blackening Care Conference group. The first founder is actually here, but you'll hear more from him later. But yeah, I'm the second, so I've got the baton. Had it. Not that I really wanted it, but hey, we'll go with that because it's a heavy mantle to carry. So I'll do some housekeeping first. Toilets, we've got, as we know, toilets in the main foyer. And then if you go through this door and up the first set of stairs, there's more toilets there. If a fire alarm goes off, it is real because there isn't any sort of fire drills today. So please exit the building as fast as you can. If you're following us on Twitter or want to post anything on Twitter, you can follow us it's called @TheBlackEXP. And then you can hashtag the Black Care Experience, because I tried to shorten the hashtag, but someone else has already got it. So we have to go with the full hashtag of the Black Care Experience. The event is going to be filmed. There's cameras in the building, so nobody will be putting a camera in your face, apart from our photographer. She'll be taking shots to capture moments. But the event will be filmed, but we're not live streaming it. And the reason why the decision was made to not live stream it, because we know that this subject can be very triggering, and we can't safeguard anybody who's watching. And then because of the topic, we could get trolled on Twitter as well, or on social media, or in the comments box, and we don't want to put anybody within that space. With that in mind, we do have an in-house therapist with us today. She's downstairs, so if you go through these doors and go downstairs, Shireen is down there for anybody who might feel triggered from anything that is said today. So we're trying to safeguard everybody in the building as well, so you don't leave feeling like, feeling very, very vulnerable. We want to settle you and signpost you before you go. Is that okay? Okay, brilliant. So I think what I'm going to say, first of all, is the purpose of the event. The agenda. Let me tell you the agenda, how we're going to do this today. So we're going to have a presentation by me, which is called the Black Care Experience and Your Experience, but I'll explain more about that as we go along. Then we'll have a guest panel of our speakers here, and we'll be talking about our lived experiences, and the floor will be open for you to ask them any questions. Then we're going to have break for lunch at about 12:45 to 1:15. We've got a lovely spread for you guys, so you don't have to go to the shops. We've got food for you here. And then we're going to do like a group workshop of shaping our future and what needs to change and how we need to change it. Then we're going to move on from that and into celebrating our Black Care experiences. So we'll have some live performances, and we'll let you know about that later on. We were going to have some more guest speakers, but they couldn't make it. So it's just us. We do have the chair of England's Independent Care Review. He's going to zoom in and say something. So we've got him with us. So we think that's quite good. And if anybody's got any questions, we were going to use a Slido account, but I don't think we need to use it. I think if anybody wants to come up and take the mic, well, we hand you the mic, and if you have any questions, we'll let you know when you can do that. Is that okay? And then we know that more people will probably come in, because we had quite a fair bit of people register, but it's a Saturday morning, and people might be thinking, Saturday, can't be bothered, or I'll get there when I get there. But anyway, the beauty of, as I said, is that we are filming this, so it's our legacy to pass on to the next generation and anybody else who wants to watch and take notes from it. So the purpose of the Black Care Experience Conference is to hear our stories from a Black parent's point of view and also to hear from the social workers or foster carers or anybody else within that space that cares for us or any black children, to hear how you have any barriers or issues or any good practice that we can all share and move forward with. We also want to have this conference because we want to feed into England's independent social care reviews. How many know that it's happening? If you raise by hands, we know it's happening? Right. So this is going to feed into, we hope, the independent care review so that they can look at what needs to change for black children in care along with everybody else who's in the care system. The aim of this conference is to also bring together a community, and I call this a village of proactive and diverse supporters, so that we can together map out any projects and initiatives beyond the time frame of the care review and beyond this conference to see how we can come together and make things better for our black children in care. So those are the three aims that's why we're having this conference today. I've been asked as to whether there will be any conferences going forward. We'll see. I'm not saying anything just yet. Okay? So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Josh, but let me read his bio. So as we know, Josh is the chair of England's Independent Social Care Review. He's a former secondary school teacher. He taught in schools across Greater Manchester, where he first developed the ideas that would lead him to set up Frontline. And Frontline is a charity creating social change for children by developing excellent social work practice and leadership. Josh was announced as the chair of the Independent Review of Children's Social Care in January 2021 and took up his post in March 2021. Since then, the review has set out an early case for change and consulted with over 1,000 care experienced people and over 1,000 members of the children's social care workforce. The review is expected to report in 2022. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Josh McAllister. And he should appear on the screen.
I'm assuming you can. So thank you very much, Judith, for the introduction. I've got a few cameras up here showing me a bit of what's going on in the room. So I can't see everybody, but I feel a little bit like I'm there with you. So hopefully this will work all right. First thing to say is a huge thank you to Judith and the team for pulling together the event today. I think it's hugely important, and it's a topic that hasn't been given the attention it deserves before. The Black experience of care is distinct in a number of ways, and it's really important that it gets the focus and the attention that it needs, not just as part of the independent review of children's social care, but across the whole system. Just to start with, I wanted to give you a sense of what the review is doing. Why was it set up? Where are we up to at the moment? And then also to share with you some of the messages that we've heard from Black care experienced young people, care experienced adults, foster carers, and people that work in the workforce. The first thing to say is that the big question that the review started with nearly a year ago now, although it feels a lot longer than a year ago, the big question is, how can we better guarantee that children grow up in their families with safety, stability, and love? And where that's not possible, how can we create a care system that provides those same foundations? And that's really a question for all of us. It's not just a question of what do services need to do, what does government need to do? It asks a question of society. How can we better help families raise children with those foundations, recognizing that it takes a village? And also, when we do make the really big decision to take children into care, how can we make sure that that care provides that lifelong loving sense of connection and identity? And there are particular issues for the Black care experience in terms of answering that question. The other feature of the review, which is a bit different, is that instead of just looking at the fostering system or the adoption system or residential care or the family courts or early help or child protection, these sort of various component parts of what we call the children's social care system, the review is actually looking at the whole thing. And that means there's a chance to in some ways not get lost in the detail of any one area, but actually look across the whole system and think, are there ways in which we might need to reset or re-establish the ways that we do children's social care? As part of answering this big question, and as part of looking at the whole system, we've spoken to thousands of people who've got lived or professional experience of children's social care. We've run a number of events. We've conducted polls, we've conducted research, we've run multi-day events trying to get a deeper understanding of some of the lived experience of parents as well as young people and wider family members. We've collected and gathered a lot of evidence and new data for the first time. And I think all of that has given us the ability to hear and understand some of the contradictions, as well as some of the big broad themes of what people who are on the receiving end of children's social care tell us needs to change. And there are some big things that do need to change and improve for a lot of the people. And all the way through this and from the start, I have been committed to hearing the voices of as broad a range of people as possible. And a big part of that has been focusing on racial disparities as part of the review. It was one of the areas of focus when we began the review, and it's continued since. There are a number of particular voices that have come through the engagement that we've done with people who've got lived experience. So, for example, I'll just give you a few examples here of some of the quotes we've had from young people or care experienced adults. We've been told, and this is a direct quote, local authorities should think about the young person's culture and background before they agree a placement. Sometimes young people are placed in unsuitable areas. I was placed in a racist area and I was injured. Another care experienced adult, it's not just about placing a child with a black foster family. It's also about matching the culture of the young person. If a culture match cannot be provided, there needs to be a package and community of support to ensure that young people's needs are met. And then this quote, the next one, is from a white foster carer who said, I was unprepared to look after a black child. I was surprised how difficult it was to learn those skills like hair care. I didn't have any understanding of how difficult it can be to do some of those things. You have to learn on your feet. There's not enough training for white foster carers looking after black children. I wouldn't know how to explain to an older black child about their experiences. The training should be more robust for them to learn. That is them being foster carers. The core training is okay, but there needs to be more of it. And so these are messages we've heard hundreds of times over. Judith herself and a number of colleagues, I imagine probably quite a few of you in the room, have been involved in the Black Table Talks that were taking part earlier in the review process to create some space to have deeper conversations about some of these messages. I was really pleased that my team were able to be part of those table talks, and I was struck by some of what was shared by white social workers and white foster carers about hesitation to get things wrong. I'm familiar with some of those messages from my time leading Frontline and starting to get that organisation into a better conversation about racial disparities and cultural competence. The thing that is a sign of hope is the desire to learn. So whilst there is hesitation to get things wrong and some anxiety about this topic, particularly held by white people, I do think there is a desire to learn and do better. As well as hearing directly from children and families and social workers, we wanted to understand what the data tells us. And there are some huge gaps in terms of the data and research available on the different experiences of children's social care, depending on the ethnic group. And we're currently working with the Department for Education. We've commissioned some of the research from them, and we're hoping to include that in our final report and make sure that it informs our recommendations. And I hope that that will also leave a legacy of better understanding of some of the differences of experience in the children's social care system beyond the review. And then finally, in the case for change, we highlighted some specific ethnic disparities throughout the care system, including the different age at which children come into care, the experiences in care, and particularly youth justice, which is an area that I'm particularly concerned about. And we plan to examine these issues in a lot more detail in the final report. The final things maybe I'll end on are that this conference today is about the Black care experience, and it's important that Black voices are heard distinctly as part of this. Part of the review's work looking at racial disparities obviously goes beyond just the Black care experience. And there are some themes which are worth the review, and then I think subsequent to the review, other researchers digging into and understanding in much greater detail. And that is that in some parts of the children's social care system, some groups are underrepresented in the system and others are massively overrepresented. So Asian children in care, the disparities around mixed ethnicity children coming into care the earliest and staying the longest. So there are some really different experiences depending on your background, and we're very keen to focus on that, draw a spotlight to it, and make sure that we can make some recommendations which improve it in a big way. So I'll finish there because I want to make sure there's a chance for you to ask some questions and share comments with me about maybe some of your experiences too. But I'm really delighted to be here, really grateful that all of you are spending some time on a Saturday on this really important topic that will be hugely personal to many of you. And also to say that I hope the review, when we conclude, will be able to respond to a number of the issues that we've heard that might be reflective of your experiences too. So thank you very much for coming, and look forward to hearing some of your questions.
One, two. Does anyone have any questions for Josh while we've got him on screen with us? How many Black children took part in the study that the review has done?
I don't know the answer to that question. We have, because of the different ways in which we've done some engagement work, we've not always collected the full demographic background of people that have participated. But we have made sure that making sure we hear from groups that are underrepresented has been a particular focus. So, for example, Gypsy, Roma, Traveller community members, we've not heard enough from in the review. We've done quite targeted work to make sure we hear more from their experience. And one of the things I haven't mentioned earlier in the talk is that we've in the review itself run a number of roundtables on some of these topics as well. And I know Judith, who's a member of the Expert by Experience board, we've talked a number of times about making sure that we hear from that widest possible group. We will include in the final report breakdown of the demographics where we've got them, where they're available, about who's participated in the review process. So that will give a bit more information, but I don't have an answer to hand for you on that, I'm afraid. I've got the question. So have wider family networks been involved in the consultancy to give feedback on how they may have been involved when a child's coming into care? Yes, absolutely. And at the start, I'm really pleased this question's been asked. At the start of the review, we wanted lived experience to be the focus, which obviously includes people that have been in care, whether they're currently in care or whether they're care experienced adults, but also parents and the wider family networks. And we've heard from hundreds of parents and wider family members, either as kinship carers, so grandparents, and we've run a number of roundtables with aunts and uncles and grandparents, as well as events, and heard a number of times from birth families as well. We've actually just finished undertaking some ethnographic work in 2 parts of the country, following families who are currently in the child protection process as well. So I think in the final report, we'll be able to share in quite a detailed way what the experiences are for people who are parents or wider family members of the children's social care system, and triangulate that with some case audit that's been done as part of the review. So looking through some of the interaction between social workers and family members, some ethnographic work following the experiences of families, as I've just mentioned, and then hundreds of bits of testimony from parents and wider family members that we've spoken to. And of course, one of the things that's been really striking is the number of parents who've got experience of their children going through the care system who themselves are care experienced in some way. And I think that just shows that in some of the intergenerational cycles, some of the family stresses that pass down from generation to generation and the way that services respond, we need to do a lot better in helping particularly young parents with that. And then there's a second question here. The ideas that were submitted, what was the proportion that address racial disparity? I don't know the answer to that question. We had, I think, from 600 people or organisations, about 1,000 different ideas that were submitted. There certainly were ideas that were in there specifically about racial disparities, and I would say that probably a lot of the ideas that were submitted in the call for ideas were about disparities generally across the children's social care system, that if you're in one part of the country, you get a very different response depending on what's going on for your family. And there's a third question here. Can you give us more insight into any initial findings or streams of work into cultural competence and links to decolonisation of social work England? So some of the insights on findings of cultural competence. Well, I think one of the things that we've heard, particularly from social workers as part of their training and supervision, is that in a way, there is training that takes place where people learn what they know they need to think about in terms of cultural competence, and they, in a lecture environment, recognise that these things are important. It's when practitioners are in practice in families' homes, having an awareness enough of needing to tune into some of that cultural competence. So it's not just enough to learn it, how it's applied in practice is often where these things fall down. And I have heard from a number of social workers that Black social workers who have really very rarely had white colleagues talk to them quite openly about what they bring to the work as a Black social worker working with a Black family or a white family, and white social workers feeling like that those topics, despite the values of social work, which are often talked about very assertively, when it comes to social work practice and some of the conversations that happen between social workers about how they're working with a family and what some of their ideas about what a family looks like and is like, some of those conversations, some of that dialogue doesn't actually happen nearly enough. So that's been one of the big things. And then organisations like Social Work England and actually the Department for Education itself and others, I think, in the last 2 years, as a direct result of the Black Lives Matter movement, have recognised that they need to do more and have a focus on this. So that's been something that Social Work England have referenced in conversations with us as part of the review, and also the Department for Education, particularly around data and what's available. I don't know if there's any more questions that people want to ask. Oh, fourth one here, great. I come from a local authority where we have been struggling getting the views of Black families who are in the social care system. I'd like to know how easy was the process, what strategies were used to get those voices, and what can be done to ensure that we have these voices regularly rather than waiting for a consultation. That's a brilliant question. So one of the things we did right at the beginning of the review was put a group of people with lived experience in charge of how we hear from people as part of the review. I'm not care experienced, and I think that makes it even more important that myself chairing the review have a group of people who have that lived experience making the decisions about who do we go and speak to, how do we do that engagement, and actually that was why we created the Expert by Experience board, which Judith's on. It's itself got a really representative group of experience in age, but also ethnicity, geography. We've got foster carers on there, we've got kinship carers. We've got people with lived experience of children's social care from the 80s through to people who are currently in care. And I think having something like that, making some of these decisions on how you do engagement and how you do listening, is absolutely essential. And I would recommend it if I was speaking to anyone else doing a review. I think there are some features of the Experts by Experience board which might be useful for services in the future to set up something similar. So something, if you like, in a way that's more than a children in care council, but actually brings the breadth of different experiences together in one group, and has that real focus. And then, of course, we put a lot of resource in the review into this process to make sure that we hear from different people. So I might be able to share it actually on the link with Steve, or for follow-up with attendees at the conference. We published really openly the process of how we were going to reach out to people and hear from them. We offered a whole different range of ways of doing that. So you could either join an event with us, you could have an individual conversation with somebody in the review team. And then we've worked with, and this has been really crucial, I think, organisations that have already got very strong and trusting relationships in a community of interest. So, for example, we've worked with Judith and a couple of other organisations that have got really strong networks and community of trust within the Black community to run events where we could hear from people and their lived experience. So I think my answer to the question is there's just no one way of doing it. It requires persistence. It requires using your ears in the ratio of your ears to your mouth, which is 2-1, and doing more listening than talking. And I think it requires you to hand over some power to people that have got lived experience to probably make some of the decisions about how you're going to do this stuff in the first place. But very happy to share, I don't know who asked that question, but very happy to share more following this conference on that.
Brilliant. I was just saying thank you very much and enjoy your Saturday.
Steve's just repeated what you said, Judith, so thank you very much. And I hope the rest of the conference goes really well. And sorry I couldn't be there in person.
Thank you. Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
This is really weird. Give a round of applause for that. Wow. That was really weird. When you're doing conferences, these hybrid conferences nowadays, they're just like, but we move. Okay. Right, how does everybody feel after Josh's lovely Zoom speaking time? Everyone okay? All right, good. So we're just going to move more into the meat and the bones of the Black care experience. Right, so we're just going to go into the Black care experience and how it started, and then we're going to do a bit of a together workshop on some of the information that we're going to talk about today. Is that okay? So please have your notepads, pens, papers, everything that you need, and then we'll go into the meat of this. So, the Black care experience. So, in 2020, during lockdown, the Black care experience came together because we had a shared concern about the care outcomes and life chances of the Black care experience. And we were also concerned as to how the voice of the Black care experience will be presented and represented at England's Independent Children's Social Care Review. So you heard Josh say that we were kind of making sure that our voices were heard at the table as well. So that's why we came together. The team at that time consisted of, and some of them are here today and some are not here, of Kim Emenike, Janine Davis, Katrina Goodman, Selena Anderson, Henrietta Imore, Keely Stevenson, Rick Flo. Some of them are here today. And we also had a Black adoptee who was Shania Dunbar-Ives, but they're not here today as well. So we worked together from November 2020 to October 2021, and we surveyed about 49 Black care experience people and then published a report with our findings that was submitted to the care review in 2021. So we made sure that when we did the survey, we put our report in at the time that it was called for at the care review. So, when we're talking about Black, we're talking about the ethnic origin, if the ethnic origin, is either African, Caribbean, including mixed race with African or Caribbean heritage. We've been asked, is it just black or is there mixed race? But we want to include mixed race children as well in this when we're talking about black. So, moving on. Now, what has been a challenge is that, we get asked, so it's not all about black people in care. We said we know. We just want to say our piece as well. So just for context, we understand that the care experience for all does come with its challenges. When you're placed in the care system, it's a challenge straight away. But we also know that the care experience for those of us who are black come with an extra layer of challenges. And let's look at those challenges in context. So, for those who are in care, the Department of Education, their research said that some are regarded as low achievers with low life chances, en route to being a financial burden to the state. Some will become part of their own dysfunctional family, homeless. Some will have a lower take-up of education, employment, and training. Some will have poor mental and physical health outcomes in adulthood. Some will have a higher reoffending rates, and some will be placed at Her Majesty's pleasure. So the Department of Education said that children in care are likely to have complex and challenging needs and must overcome these challenges to achieve their potential. And this is what they found in their research. In addition to the challenges of being in care, through our survey, we were able to identify the extra layer of challenges experienced by those who are black and in care. And I'll make a start. Identity, culture, care, and our aspirations. Identity and culture. Who was promoting our ethnicity and meeting and maintaining our cultural needs in relation to, if it was to do with our mother tongue, the food we ate and were accustomed to. In relation to our care, there were issues surrounding hair care, skin care, our health in relation to our mental health and emotional well-being, and who was our safe space to voice our concerns about our care. Our aspirations. Who was there to be a role model and champion our aspirations? When some of us were told, who you? You can't do that. You'd be better off doing this instead. We also saw that those who are black and in care were not prepared for the wider world of racism and discrimination. We also heard that some experienced this by those who were supposed to care for them. We also saw that there was an overrepresentation of black children in the care system compared to other ethnic communities. We also saw that there was a shortage of black foster carers to meet this overrepresentation. There were issues with regards to matching, as not every child can be culturally matched. So they may be transracially or cross-culturally matched, which would have an impact on our identity and our positive sense of self. When I say a transracially matched and culturally matched, everybody understands that, right? If anybody doesn't, I'll explain it. Yep, okay, good. And then when we were in the foster care system, black boys of black African descent waited the longest to be adopted. So we wait the longest to be adopted, and everyone seems to understand that. In our research, we were also able to identify, as I said at the beginning, that we weren't the first group to sort of bring this information to light. In 1984, I would say the Black and in Care group held their first Black and in Care conference. And from that conference, they produced a report that was sent to the House of Commons Select Committee on Social Services in 1985. After 1985, the Children Act 1989 came into force. However, and I will say however, the only reference to how social care are to care for black children is that local authorities are to give consideration to the religious persuasion, the racial origin, culture and linguistic background of the child that is to be placed. There's also a Children Act guidance, Regulations Volume 4, where it says that foster carers should be informed and trained and confident about dealing with issues relating to gender, religion, ethnic origin, cultural background, and linguistic background. So we see all of this in place, but still we have issues with black children in the care system and how we're being cared for. On balance, I will say it's fair to say that we do have some good examples of how black children are being cared for, but it's not enough. Because black children in care still go on to have the poorest outcomes and life chances after being in care compared to their peers who are in the care system. So we have to do something about that. And this is where our workshop comes into play. We're going to split into groups. And anybody who works in children's social care, and that means foster carer, social worker, residential manager, anything to do with children's social care, if you can sit on this side of the room, we're going to shuffle you up. And if you're already there, that's fine. And then if you are black and in care, I want you to sit in this section. Can we do that? Yeah. And don't worry, I'm going to mix up the groups later, so we've got a mix of social care and black and in care. But for this section, I just need you all to sit over this side and that side, just to start off with. It's fantastic to see social care turn out. I'm so happy. Right. So here is your task, I will say. Ooh. Can we have some more people from this one to go into the group number 2? How many have we got? Because I'm not giving numbers, because I don't want to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's long. That is so long. But just make sure you can balance out yourselves. I don't mind. Feel free. All right, just so we have a nice number. All right. So those in children's social care, this is your task. How have you been able to care for the black child or young person in your care? And I want you to look at the, the issues, the challenges, the barriers, and best practice. So tell me everything. Yep. So how have you been able to care for the black child or young person in your care? So we're looking at the issues, the challenges, the barriers, and best practice. Okay? Then the care experience world over here. What have you experienced or are experiencing in your care journey? And I want you to find what are the common themes or the common experiences that you're all going to talk about. And it's both, I would say. We talked about the challenges of being in care, and then we talked about the extra layers. So talk about both of those challenges, the challenge of being in the system, and then based on your ethnicity as well. So everyone gets to be able to talk about this. And is that okay? All right. So where's my time lady? Oh, she's in the kitchen. I'll give you about 15 minutes. Yeah, 15 minutes. So we'll close this. We'll feed back at just 20 past 11. Is that okay? Okay, go for it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 20 past. We're back in the room. Well done. Real good engaging. All right, so who's going to be your spokesperson on this side? Henry. But remember, there are 2 groups. Okay, good. Sanchia, could you scribe for me? Can you, whatever you hear, no? Who's good at doing that? Jade? Any one of you? Come on, man. You've got good talent. Put it to use. Yeah, here's a, use any one of these. Or whatever you hear. Okay. Social care side, say yeah. Oh, I can't hear you. Social care side, say yeah. Brilliant. Okay. So, who wants to come up from the group in the middle to tell us? Yes, Bianca, step up. Place of progress. Instagram queen in the house. Give her a round of applause. Come on, Bianca. Come on, Bianca. Come up. I mean it. Yes, come up. Can't tell me your stage fright now. Come on. Yeah, round of applause. All the cutting eye, you know. Sorry. Okay, what did your group talk about?
This is a proper stitcher. So we talked about matching, how important it is for young people to be matched to providers. I'm a provider myself. I've got 16 plus and 18 plus provisions. Sometimes the demand for services outweighs the supply, and because of that, and the emergency of the placement needing to take place means that matching might kind of go out the window, but that's really, really important. Can't remember. Come on, guys, help me out. Yeah, it was more about the child or the young person not having to explain the food they like, the way they speak, the music they listen to. As a provider whose workforce is majority black, we just get it. We just understand. They don't need to come in and explain. Obviously, it works the other way as well. I was talking about the experience we had recently of looking after a white child and her feeling like, I don't like their food, you know, and obviously it just works the other way. So the black children that come into us, we just get it. You should have done this.
Come up as well. Do a joint venture here. Come up. Round of applause. Come on. Teamwork makes the dream work. Oh, Bianca, Steve is saying, can you stand on the stage?
I'm going to yield the mic.
Well, I think that's probably it. I mean, the other things is some of the things that we talked about in terms of what we have in our local authorities. And we have things like groups for young people. So in my authority, which is Essex, we have something that we've called Proud to be Me. And it's from it's part of the Children in Care Council. And you know, Essex is a changing county, and we don't have. It's predominantly white, but what we do see is that there is disproportionality in our care system. So we're very clear that actually we need to do things that are very different. So we do have something that focuses and helps young black children to have a voice around what their experiences are, and some of those experiences are quite harrowing to listen to. Growing up as a black child in Essex is not easy in a county that is predominantly white. So I think those are the things that we're beginning to do. But also, we have a changing workforce. So it's clear that what's important is that we teach and we support the workforce to understand, and our foster carers. So there's a whole host of things that we're trying to do. And we've just created an anti-racist practice service manager role, social work qualified. You need to be a social worker in children and families. So if any of you are interested, the closing date is on the 20th of February. It's a really important role. We're very committed to change and making the experiences better. So, sorry, that's a plug from me.
Woo! Round of applause! Networking at its best. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Team at the back, do you want to come up? Who's going to come?
Good morning, everyone. Myself, I am a teacher and I work for an organisation that has a number of children's homes in London and semi-independent. I take care of their education because I think it's really important that young people aspire and get support to be able to follow the pathways of their potential. And we talked, there was a number of people in our group. We had 2 teachers, a foster carer, semi-independent provider, and an IRO, who is an advocate for young people, which I think is fantastic, and a virtual school teacher.
Okay.
So this lady is
I'm a foster parent, have been for well over 10 years. Started working with young people with mental health situations, so they would come into our home, my husband and I, and the whole ethos was to get them ready for independent living. So I gave an example of the first young person we had, which at that time happened to be a white young man, and he had bipolar, but very, very intelligent. So they've asked us to try and get him ready for university. On him coming into the home, we helped him. We're Christians. In the journey, he became a Christian. He then went on to university in Wales, Bangor University or something. Yeah. He then came back. He then started living independently. He then went and did his master's. He then met a beautiful black woman and got married. We got invited to their wedding, and she's now pregnant. They're now pregnant. So the outcome was really, really good. But I'm saying that in 2 seconds, it took a journey. Some of the things that I mentioned that I felt needed to be addressed, now that I am actually within Bromley fostering services, I think it's important that we look at social work. And I know the job is hard. I know what you have on your books are just crazy. But the changeover is frustrating to the young person. You know, we've been blessed that the young man we have now, his social worker was with him for 2 years, and the one before a year. But they've all moved on, you know. And my current young person is black. The other thing I find a bit frustrating is around his education. For some reason, and I don't know how we're going to address this, young people in care, especially young black men, don't see the importance of education in the sense that my one, he just glides. He's an intelligent young man, but he just don't put himself out. And one other thing before I shut up, we wrap our children, and I was saying this earlier, we as carers, we are encouraged, and it's important to wrap our children in cotton wool, but are we preparing them for the real world? My one, all he cares about is his allowance. His clothing allowance. And you know, he'll save up a couple weeks and he's rocking £150 jumpers. That's not the real world, boy. And I tried to tell him that's not the real world. When you hit 18 and you might have to leave us because we might not do staying put, which is where they can stay after they're 18, who's going to give you that kind of money? And I think it's important, not that I'm saying we cut the allowance, of course not, but I'm just saying what we have to have an understanding for them to understand that when they turn 18, it changes. And it's how we engage them with that.
We also talked about, some of the foster carers mentioned that training sometimes can be an issue. and training in particularly adverse childhood experiences for young people and for young black people in particular. Because I think as a community, mental health and adverse childhood experiences are something that we've never really discussed, and what the impact can be of our young people growing up. I'm born in Britain, so I'm black and I'm British and I'm proud of that. So I understand the landscape. So when you're actually supporting young people in care, you can actually give them advice. So best practices about role modeling, identifying mentors in the community to be able to support young people. I get the fact that money sometimes is an incentive. However, if in education they are given financial literacy and also with the training, couple that together, we can actually begin to see some success.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Team at the front, who's going to be your spokesperson? Anybody run to the mic in 5, 4, 3, 2. Yes, give them a round of applause as they come up. There you go.
I wouldn't have offered if I knew I was coming on stage, but I am Vicky. I am a social worker in Essex Adoption Team. Do you want to say?
I'm Tammy. I'm a practice consultant in Norfolk. One of the first things that I said was in this conference, you can see many of us are blacks. And we are here for the black care experience. And what we don't have are white foster carers, white social workers.
They were invited. They were invited.
Yeah, they were invited. But it just shows how sometimes that's the challenge we have even in our local authorities, where we need to get the message out. But who is coming, who is there then is the black foster carers and social workers. I come from a local authority where, when I looked at the data, there were only less than 5 foster carers who are black, who are covering the whole local authority. And you find the experiences when you look at the data in terms of the black children that are in care, we have more of them. But at the same time, we need more of these trainings. We need allyship. We need a lot to come into this training. So do you want to?
Equally, just to add, I thought there'd be more black people here as well. When I saw that this training was on, I was really excited. I was thinking, yes, I want to be involved in something like this. So I would have liked to see more people here in general.
Okay.
So we've got some foster carers in our group, one of which is my mum. And so how do they care for black children? With love. But also, they both said a fight. Great advocates for the children in their care. From my experiences of my parents fostering, when the 2 Ghanaian boys came to my Caribbean parents, and they came from white foster carers, they wasn't putting any cream on their skin, because they wanted to be white. They were in a very white area, and very few non-white children in their school. They wanted to look like their foster carers, who, by the way, are absolutely amazing and still in their lives 12 years later, or however many years. But that was really telling, and actually it was important for my parents to think, yes, we're black, but we are different. And then it was about looking at foods that they loved at home, and the red chicken. I always remember the red chicken was their favourite when they came. My parents had never had this red chicken. They learned, they cooked it, and they, in the end, they were asking for other things, fried rice and all. But it was that they were given a choice, and it was, it was an offer. So we spoke about matching, didn't we? We spoke about being prepared to fight for what we think, all children are entitled to and having aspirations and yes, trying to come across barriers. We spoke about police as well, and attitudes and treatment and all sorts. So we just want the very best, and being here today is a great start.
Thank you. We'll give them a round of applause. Oh, did you want to say something?
No,
Sorry.
I just wanted to add, Bruce, from a social work perspective, I worked in child protection and I was involved in placing children, and it was really difficult to get the placement. And now I was saying some of the barriers, like I had a black mother who had children in care, and they were placed with a non-black foster carer. And just the hair, nobody would understand, because she would go for contact and she would be coming and saying, my children's hair, and the supervisor in social work and the agents and everyone would be saying, there's nothing wrong, all you worry about is the children's hair. It's that understanding that the children's hair is very important. And when it comes as well to foster care, I was saying there are lots of barriers when you look at how foster carers are assessed. So maybe that's why we have a few foster carers as well from the black background, because some of the barriers for me, I'm a black African, only came into the country 11, 12 years ago, and that's exactly, how we are as from an African background. Most of us came just less than 20 years ago. And they want to be foster carers, but sometimes, again, it's the financial assessment, housing, they do not have those means, but they want to be foster carers. And we're talking about, the outcomes of black children. So that comes from, as well, the outcomes. We've got, lots of black children that end up in the criminal system, criminal justice, and then when they grow up, we end up when the assessments are being done, they've got criminal history, all that, and they can become foster carers. So there's a lot of barriers, diversity in our teams, like I was saying, I'm from Norfolk, and our teams, there's less diversity in fostering and adoption. So there is a lot of challenges when it comes to, the children that are in care who are black, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Give them a round of applause, everyone. Okay. All right, in 5, 4, 2, 2 of you come up together. 3, 2, give a round of applause. All right.
Thank you, Judith. Before I start, I was listening there, just sitting down, and I was thinking about when Judith actually set this up. And I think it was just after Black Lives Matter when you set it up. And to see everybody in the room, everyone's like, oh, there should be more people, there should be more people. But this is just the start. And this is a mantle that Judith has set this up. And I just think we need to just take a moment and just think how important this conversation actually is. Young people I know are slitting their wrist. Young people I work with right now are at home on medication thinking about tomorrow and whether they want to be alive. So all of you that are in this room are the start of change. And it's the start. So you can go back to the offices on Monday and you can bang on the door to make sure they come. Because it's all good saying they need to come, but you are an active agent of change right now. So I just thought, just have that start right now. Yeah, Henry's like that. Judith will tell you. So for my group, we had lots of conversations, and I don't want to spoil David's story. He's going to go into detail a bit more about it, so I won't say too much. But we spoke about higher education and social workers not feeling like we're meant to overachieve. So we had a young person speak about her getting a 2-1, or was it a first? 2-1, can we give her a round of applause? Woo! Woy-oy. And, the social worker just wasn't, even expecting her to overachieve, and she had to push to get that specific grade. We also spoke about culturally matched. I'm going to mention this on the panel later, but I was put in an Asian family, which were really lovely, and I'll talk about the good and bad parts of it. But but once again, my Nigerian heritage wasn't supported or anything like that. And I had a really strong Nigerian heritage and like culture before I went into care, which sort of just went out the window afterwards. Someone spoke about, I think this was David, being multi-heritage, so being mixed race, and his mum actually gave him up, but his dad was in a really good position to look after him, but due to the system being racist, they didn't let him stay with the dad. And all the other children that were with the dad at the time are now barristers, doing really well. So maybe David's trajectory would have been different, you know? So the system also being racist as well is another factor that we need to talk about. We spoke about identity issues and belonging. So someone spoke about not knowing who their dad was, or their culture, or like, you know, on the files, the dad said he was Sudanese, but is he Sudanese? You know, like even now, this person is still thinking, who am I? What's my identity? So we need to look at that as well. What is written in the files? Is it accurate? You know, why is it not accessible like 10 years later? You know, when we have kids, we want to be able to tell our kids our culture, who we are. So that's another thing that we spoke about. Feeling like you're at the bottom of the barrel because you're not suitable for foster care. We also spoke about siblings, siblings that are separated and like, you know, for example, if you go into a meeting or like you go into somewhere and you meet a sibling and you're like, oh, you look good, you know, and you're attracted to your sibling, you wouldn't even know if your boyfriend is from the same foster care or you are a relation because they didn't tell you and they split us up. So like, I know we're all laughing, but it's, you know, this is quite bad. So yeah, I have a little brother who is still in foster care and the whole problems with that. So the sibling separation is a really big conversation as well. We spoke about being foster carers, looking at cultural foods. So like, yeah, there's just no support with that. I had a lot of gulab jamuns and jalebis. If you're Asian, you'll know what that is. You know, and now looking back now, like I can speak a bit of Urdu and like, yeah, as a Nigerian, I feel like I've got that flexibility and it's a really good skill, but I wish I could have that Nigerian heritage a little bit more as well. We spoke about like having budget and expenses to do your hair and get your products. Like care leavers and black people in care, like our hair products is expensive, you know, like it's not £5 in Tesco, you know? So we need to have, you know what I'm saying? Judith will tell you I'm a bit of a comedian. And then, yeah, I think that's about it. But just to give a big round of applause for my group.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Did you want to say anything?
I will.
Yeah.
So, hello, my name's Sam. So, our group had basically myself and, I'm not sure of your name, Anita, and we were in care a long time ago. So I was in temporary foster care in Brixton. I'm from Brixton. I haven't been there for a long time, but my foster carer was a white lady, my nanny. So I have two grandmothers, and then I have a nanny. And my nanny took me to Brixton Market. And oh my God, when I was 8 years old, the police had to come because they refused to let the woman walk out the market with me because I was a black child. So I'm glad none of those things are happening anymore. But moving on, our team, basically, it's all about the hair. I've recently started a new job in Essex, and I had a foster parent come to me and basically say that she wanted to get the little girl's hair done. She said that when she took the little girl to the hairdressers, she cried continuously, and the foster carer basically stopped the hairdresser doing her hair because she felt that she was just pulling on her hair so much. I have another example where a foster child went to contact. The parent spent the whole time in contact doing the child's hair. And then whoever the contact person was who was observing wrote a report that the mum was pulling on the child's hair, and the child was upset. So there's a lot of teaching that needs to happen in regards to the hair care. My manager is sitting over there, so I've got to be very careful about what I say. So on a serious note, we run a group in Essex called Proud to Be Me, and this is where our children from Afro-Caribbean heritage come once a month, and they actually get to do different topics. So last week was our first meeting, and we did jollof rice. Now, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm from Jamaica, and I keep getting told, can you help me? Can you make it with me? Can you do it with me? And I took the time to go on YouTube and find the recipe, and we did it. And according to them, because I had to leave, so according to them, they just kept texting me and saying, when are we going to do that again? When are we going to do that again? And I'm Jamaican, so I know nothing. I've never made this recipe before. I've never eaten it before, but we did it. And as long as my children, the young people that I work with, are happy, and that's what I want for them. As soon as I say anything about cooking, they're there. In our local catchment area, there's 2 barbers, black barbers. I've got no hairdressers as yet. I'm trying to find them. I'm actually in the process of doing a list of all the products, and this is we get so granular and caught up in the small things. So I got told to go and make a list of products and prepare a pack for white carers so that they can have at hand when a black child comes into their household. And most of the group that was doing this were caught up on what products are we going to use and which brands. Now, we all know when we go into black beauty shops, you know, there's probably 1,000 products for white British European hair. There's about 50,000 products for black hair. So, I mean, I don't care I'm not promoting anybody. I don't care, as long as the products do the job that they need to do. So, hopefully, our care leavers in Essex will have products or at the houses, the foster parents' houses, so that when they come into that foster carer's house, they will have a pack, they will have a list of how to make curry goat and rice and peas and jollof rice and, you know, all these different foods that we all eat and enjoy, so that they can just have a normal day and think that it's fine and everybody is supporting everybody. So that's us.
Wicked. Wicked. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wow. There's so much more that we can unpack with this, but we're going to unpack it as we go along, because it's doing the job of, we're telling the story. We're telling the story of what's happening in social care. Where are my helpers? Come on. It's telling the story of what's happening in social care, and it's also telling the story of what's happening in the black children's lives who are in the care system. No, I don't need it. And so we're seeing how it all joins together. Can we see that? How it's all joining together? Okay, right. So we're going to go a bit deeper into the care experience journey, and now we're going to have our panel of black care experience. And I'm going to read, I've got their bios, and I'm going to read each one of their bios. And when I've read your bio, I want you to come up after I've read your bio. And the reason why I'm going to read the bios is because you're going to hear their stories in contrast to where they are now. Our first guest panelist is an award-winning community leader and author, a poet, an impactful story sharer, and the founder of Care Leaver Legacy. She tends to use her negative experiences as fuel to shape her purpose and influence the individuals around her. One of her greatest passions is to inspire and uplift the next generation to leave a legacy behind and achieve their absolute best. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Keely Stevenson. Woo! This gentleman grew up in care and left at age 18, but went into youth custody. He helped set up Black and in Care in the 1980s and run the National Association for Young People in Care before having a 28-year career in the media. He has sat on many boards, fostered 15 teens, ran a hostel in Camden for 15 years, and currently works for the integrated care system in Essex and Suffolk as the lead for equity. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome David Akinsanya. Whoa! OG in the house. All right. We move. This young lady is currently working at Become as a participation officer for young people in and leaving care. She is also a theatre maker, practitioner, a trustee on 2 boards, Agenda and Battersea Arts Centre. She's also an entrepreneur, having set up her own business called Happy Henry's, providing hugely successful children's entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Henrietta Imore! Woo! And last but by no means least, this person is a London-based rap artist. Growing up in foster care, the creative arts became a therapeutic medium of introspective and self-expression. His debut project, A Boy Called Rick, is a reflective journey about his life in foster care, which has resonated strongly with the undervalued community. His album, Rise of the Phoenix, which debuted 35 on the iTunes UK hip-hop rap chart with no PR or marketing. Created entirely during lockdown, Rebirth of the Phoenix is the latest body of work which illustrates Rick's most recent evolution and is a portrait of his journey beyond foster care and carries a sense of musicality that champions why he has a voice that can't be ignored. Rick has just launched Mantra Music, a community interest company, which is a record label to champion and support talented care experience artists with their music career. Welcome to the stage, Rick Flo! So we're just gonna have a conversation. We're at my house. It's a big house. We're sitting. Have you got a microphone, Henry? Oh, give me the blue. Thank you. 1, 2. 1, 2? There you go. Okay. So we're going to talk about your care experience journey. Yeah? And where do we start? We'll start with this question. We know, and anyone can answer this. What's your ethnicity? And do you know where you come from? Anyone can answer that question.
That's a good question. 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'll start. Hello, guys. So it's interesting that you asked that because I was having a conversation over there with the group about my ethnicity and where I come from. And as far as I know, my mum is Jamaican. And I've always been told that my dad is from Saudi Arabia. But like last year, I read in a court paper, I was just clearing out my cupboard, under the stairs. Oh, hello. Thank you. I was just clearing out my cupboard under the stairs, and I was reading a court file, and it said that my dad is actually from Sudan. So now I'm kind of like thinking, I've told all these people, all my friends, all my family, this is where my dad's from. I've written on, report forms and application forms that this is where I'm from, and I'm walking around feeling a bit lost, like, who am I? Where am I actually from? So yeah, it's funny that you say that. But yeah, I'm just gonna rep my Jamaican side. That's definitely what I know. Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, so I just thought I'd share that.
Brilliant. Anybody else want to share an answer to that question?
I think I'm Nigerian. No, not that I think, I know I'm Nigerian.
Yeah, we know.
It's just in the blood. So yeah, mum and dad Nigerian.
Gentlemen?
Same. I'm Nigerian. I call myself Black British. Because although I was born in Lagos, my mum brought me over here when I was like 1 year old. In regards to like being super patriotic about it, like I'm not patriotic about being English or being Nigerian. I'm just like a creative, I'm a man of the world, but that's pretty much my heritage.
Brilliant. David?
I always knew I was Nigerian, half. I didn't really find out about the white side of my family until I was pretty much, 27. So I'm from a long line of travellers, and there's lots of newspaper reports about my travelling family going back to 17-something or other. So Nigerian and a traveller.
Okay. Second question. Who were you placed with, your care experience journey? Who were you placed with?
Oh, shall I start?
Anyone.
I grew up entirely in a children's home in Essex. I'm glad to see that Essex are represented today.
Woo!
I grew up entirely in children's homes. I was sent to a maladjusted school when I was a teenager. I was deemed unfosterable at the age of 10. And so I spent the whole time in care. And then obviously, like a lot of boys from the care system, I went straight into prison.
So I was predominantly within foster placements, so I've travelled all around. Overall, I would say that I've spent my time in about 10 or 11 foster placements. I think when I got to my 9th, my social worker was like, wow, okay, Keely, if your 10th or 11th one doesn't work, I'm not gonna lie, you know, we might have to put you in a secure unit. But yeah, thank God I got there in the end, and I managed to find a stable placement with a foster carer that was able to actually handle and manage my needs.
Brilliant. Me and my little brother, we got moved into 6 foster placements, but then we stayed with like kingship care, so family members. But then they were like, we don't know if you got the same mental illness as your mum, so they kicked us out and said to the social worker, we can't have her. And then they were going to separate me and my brother, and I just made this like massive protest outside my social services and was like, you can't separate us. So then we stayed predominantly like time with the Asian foster family.
I was fostered from 8 years old. It was private fostering at first, which I didn't really understand at the time. I just thought it was child-minded. I thought it was going to be temporary. But a combination of basically having racist carers, and then when I went back to my mum's on the summer holidays, like social services looking at that as neglect, because I was just pretty much in the house for like 6 weeks holidays, just counting cars go by or just watching WWF or whatever was on television. I was then placed into, foster care, where social services had more authority. So I had 4 placements, and I would say overall, it got better as I got older.
And what was the impact of being placed with foster carers that maybe didn't look like you or did look like you? Was your culture and identity seen, promoted, celebrated? Were all your cultural needs met? I know that's a loaded question, but you get what I'm asking.
When I started eating gulab jamuns and taking it into school, people would laugh and be like, but I swear you're black. Why are you eating gulab jamuns and jalebis? Like, how do you even know that? Or like, I remember lining up in the Asian shop and people being like, looking at me, and I'm like, I've got Asian foster parents, and they're like, oh, makes sense. So like, yeah, I think at school is where I really started to clock that my Nigerian heritage was slowly dissolving. Yeah.
That word slowly dissolving, we're going to stick a pin and come back to that.
So I was with predominantly black foster carers, but one of them actually happened to be Turkish. That was a very interesting journey, actually. Again, as you kind of talk about, you know, the hair and the skin, she definitely wasn't able to manage my hair and my skin. I would kind of go to school with my hair dry as straw, and my skin was really dry as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why I actually have skin problems today. In terms of the food, she did not know how to cook at all. So we would either go to Turkish takeaways where we would get like a Turkish pizza, or we would literally get Morley's every single day. So yeah, that kind of had an impact on me as well, because I feel like when you eat that fast food every single day, I feel like it has an impact on you going to school, you know, your mental well-being, your focus, your coherence, and all of that. I don't know if this is relevant, but she also had 8 cats that lived in her kitchen. So I'm not sure if that's the reason why she didn't want to go in there and cook. And her house, not to mention as well, it looked like it should be on the TV holders. Everything was everywhere. She couldn't even sleep in her own room because her room was like bulging with just different things. I don't even think you could close the door properly. Like everything was just everywhere, and that was just such a mess. And I think it was just really, really hard living there because she wasn't able to kind of give me that love that I required and that I needed, which was a huge struggle. I also remember, I don't know if this is appropriate to say, but I remember coming on my ladies' time for the first ever time. And I said to her, oh my gosh, Valerie, I think, you know, I don't know what's going on here. I might need to, you know, I don't know if I need to go to hospital or whatever. And all she said to me was, well, you know what that means? Take yourself to the shop and buy what you need. And I felt to myself, I felt like that was a bit like cold. Do you know what I mean? Like at least sit me down, give me that good talk. So I never had that, so I just had to get on with that. That was just my experience, really. I think I've been waffling.
Yeah. I've heard kids taken away from better houses and that. That sounds absolutely dreadful. I don't know who did the assessment for that family. They attempted to foster me 8 times. And I didn't want to be fostered because the children's home was my home. And I felt they were just taking me away from that. I do remember destroying a foster parent's house in Pitsea, and that was a family of a police officer. And so basically they had other children, and somebody had damaged something in this cabinet where they had all these posh pottery things or whatever. And all the kids had said it was him. And so I came in and I pulled the whole thing down and smashed everything. And I had to move out that day. But no, I didn't want to be in a foster home. And I was quite happy being in a children's home until I was about 13. And then I moved to a children's home with 18 kids in, 18 teenagers, which was really difficult to live in.
So when you were in the children's home, was there anyone in there who was able to promote your cultural identity?
Never. In fact, they gave me a Sikh social worker once because they thought that might help me. No, never. And I mean, there was only one time when I remember any of the social workers coming to school to defend me against a racist teacher. And that was one particular social worker who I'll never forget, because I never felt anybody ever kind of fought on my behalf. And it was a white social worker. And she came up and the teacher was actually fired. So for racially abusing me in school. So yeah, never had a black carer.
Okay.
I had all white carers where my cultural needs met. I used to see my mum every 3 months, and she was the main advocate of just making sure like I'm connected, like bringing jollof rice down and just like bringing hair care products. It wasn't until I guess early teens I did get an allowance for my hair. There's only like one like black barbers in Bournemouth at that time. Like literally me and my sister was the only black kids in our whole school. So like at that time I was just trying to fit in, to be honest. Like I was just like, I don't want to feel like, I feel like a black sheep anyway. Like I just want to fit in. And I feel like the only reason why I'm on this stage and I'm speaking is because music was my empowerment. Like hip hop was the only thing I saw on screen that like I could connect with in a confident way. And that's what's gave me the empowerment to be here today. So yeah, music was where I got my cultural confidence and just a way of just owning my story regardless of the past and the situation I'm in.
Wow. Was there anyone at all, in your journey through the care system, and this doesn't have to be a social worker or a foster carer or a teacher, or it could be the extended family of those people you were connected with, was there anyone that said, right, you're a black kid, I'm going to help promote you and make sure you know who your identity?
I was just going to say, I was really lucky that my father stayed in touch with me all the way through my life. I never had an identity crisis that I've heard other people talking about. I was always proud to be black. In one of the children's home I was in, I can remember all the staff being very excited about Muhammad Ali. I had people like that to look up to, and my dad always made me feel very proud to be black. He was an educated man. He was, in fact, people don't believe this, but my dad was training the social workers who were looking after me. He worked at the University of East Anglia or the Chelmer Institute or something. And social workers were going to him to get trained, yet they wouldn't let me go and live with him. So I never felt, it caused me a lot of problems when I was a teenager because I punched anybody who said anything to me about my race, and it got me into a lot of fights. But I'd always been proud of being black. That had never been a problem. It was just being in a very hostile environment all of the time was the difficulty for me.
I was going to say I had one key worker who I now call my foster mum, which is really weird because she's just taken up that role. So in my hostel, and to be honest, the hostel and the semi-independence is a vital time because we always talk about foster care, but that transitional period of where you're just about to get your flat and they're about to drop you in the ocean, that is the crucial time. And my key worker, without her, I don't even know if I'll be on this stage. Let's just say that. Because she's just impeccable. Like, even now, like, I can call her, like, Mum, like, I need to make curry go. Like, I can make all different cultures. Chapati, jollof rice. I'm just a versatile sheep now because I've just got so many. One thing about care is that it's, in a good way, it's given me a melting pot of cultures. That's what I can take away. But she's Jamaican, and like, she's like, I want you to, learn about your heritage, and I want to take you to Brixton, and she showed me to the Nigerian shops and where I can get my ogi and all of that. So she's not Nigerian, but she's still taking that culture to install into me. But yeah, Jennifer has been impeccable. So yeah.
As I said, cultural needs is a whole other ball game in Bournemouth. Like, there's no black people around me. But I would say, as I said, foster care got better as I got older, and I do remember having, like, whether it's teachers, social workers, all the carers, they were really helping me with what I was into. So I was into art, like I was into drawing. Like, they forced me to go to art school on a Saturday morning. Make that commitment, like even in regards to get my first computer to do graphics and animation, like I remember the social worker that I had at the time, they didn't have an allowance to give me like a computer that I wanted, but so they gave me a computer out of the office that didn't even have a CD-ROM drive. It wasn't fit enough for my needs to like do graphics and whatnot, but then because they knew I was going to art school and I was going to go to do graphic design at college, they're like, Rick, look, we're going to make this happen. I'm going to speak to the IT team at the college and see what computer that you need. So I got, at the age of 16, I had basically a MacBook Pro, equivalent to a MacBook Pro for when I went to college. And that's all because the social worker went out of her way to like, look, we're going to make sure you get the right computer so you can actually excel with your studies. So like, she was incredible. And I'm 35 now, but like the fifth carers that I had, that they're still family to me to this day. Like they're always supportive with my music, just like, yeah, Rick, keep on keeping on, supporting me on Facebook and whatnot. So like, just in the sense of just like that love beyond care, the fact that I could even go back to theirs, if like they've always got a couch for me, if they haven't got a bed, like they're always supportive, and I feel that's massive, because the more I've talked to young people, that the transition of them being in care to being independent, it's a mad difficult time, and they haven't necessarily got that support. So yeah, I'm just grateful that, yeah, in the sense of me like loving art and that being my solace, that being supported.
Just to end, I would say that my last foster carer, which was either my 10th or the 11th one, really allowed me to channel my blackness. She was the first foster carer to ever invite me into her bedroom. All the other foster carers would lock their room as soon as they came out of it. And I would sit in her room, she'd be on the bed, I'd be on the beanbag, and she would be like, repeat after me. I am black and I'm beautiful. And I would have to repeat that. And at times, because I was so young then, that was about 10 years ago, because I'm still with her now, I didn't feel comfortable repeating that, but I repeated it and repeated it and repeated it, and I feel like it's really kind of allowed me to be the person that I am today. Those self-affirmations, that empowerment work that she kind of sowed within me really allowed me to be the person I am today. Also, she was the first foster carer to actually take me on the plane as well. When she found out that I had never been on the plane before, she was like, no, we are going on a plane and we are going to Jamaica for 2 whole weeks and let me show you your route. So, that was a really good experience, yeah.
Wow. This is going to be my final question, but I'm going to open it to the floor. What would you say to, you've all and are doing extremely well, whether you believe it or not, you're doing really great. And I'm honored to be in the company of you guys, all right? So, what would you have said to that younger you of you coming through the care system now? What would you have said back to yourself?
Wow. It's emotional.
It is.
Oh, you're starting me off, Judith. Why did you have to cry? Okay.
Not bad.
I would say, okay, I think I'm going to get emotional, so I'll pass the mic until...
I would say don't let your past define who you're going to be. If anybody would have told me that I was going to be turning down OBEs, having dinner with the Queen, meeting Nelson Mandela, all of those things when I was a teenager, I would not have believed it. So I would just say, dream. I wanted to be an actor. Unfortunately, they wouldn't pay for me to go to drama school, even though I got in. I ended up being a TV presenter and doing international current affairs. So none of that I thought I could do or even had in my head. So if you dream and if you aim high, we are, I think because of our experiences, because we've had to deal with all the emotional nonsense, the relationships that we're forced into or that we're forced out of, I think all of that gives us a really good grounding for dealing with people. And even though I don't work in the media now, I actually work in the authority that grew me up. And I'm part of the decision making. I'm trying to change the system from inside now. They pay me a lot of money as well, and I really enjoy taking their money.
Like, the whole point of my music was to show, like, regardless of your past, you can make a positive future. So, like, I'll just say to the young Rick, like, you got this. Like, keep going, keep believing in yourself, because, like, what you're going to achieve is beyond what you can fathom. Like, the fact that you've got to play with your boys at Lovebox, at Glastonbury, at Boomtown, like, that wasn't in my mind. I was just trying to write a verse. I was just trying to write a song next. The fact that I've done an album and I got to perform in front of 5,000 people and let my experience affect other people in a positive way, like, that wasn't in my mind. So, like, yeah, man, just keep believing in yourself. Just follow your curiosity. And as I said, regardless of the past, you've got to make a positive future.
Yeah.
God, coming after that, I feel like I'm going to cry as well. I saw this question and I was like, how the hell am I going to answer this question? Because my younger self, you know where you feel like there's no way out? Like, okay, that's how I felt. Like, there was no way out. So I find it hard to think about my younger self, because if I go back there, it's going to be serious. The reason why I'm saying that is because the night I went into care, my mum had just tried to jump off River Thames. The night that I went into care, but we didn't know that till after. And my mum was in care, so it's an intergenerational cycle that's happening. So, this woman's gone through the care system, and now Henrietta Jr. is coming through the care system. And I'm always thinking, you're saying younger self, but I'm always thinking about how am I going to break the cycle for my child when I have children. But anyway, that's another conversation. What I would say to my younger self is, everything was for a purpose. Like, when I look back now and I see the impact, I've got some of my young people here, like, that I hear, and I talk to them like, it's like we're sisters, right? Like, I talk to them, I'm getting paid to be with sisters. And it's like, the reason why I'm crying, because it's like, I had to go through that pain to instill and to support these young people sitting here today. So when they're talking and I'm at my job and my manager's like, oh yeah, we're gonna, do participation with young people, to them this is just work. But to me, I look at them like they're my blood because they've been through the same thing that I've been through. Everybody here, I say that care is like a wound. It's like a scar. And it's like a constant plaster that you're trying to just plaster it up and just get by. So we all have a connection. And I just say to my younger self, like, everything was a purpose. My mum jumping off the bridge, just about to jump off the bridge, was a purpose. And if we was the person that stopped her, like, thank God, because I wouldn't have even been in this position, And then, if we didn't go into care, my mum left the gas on, so we could have been dead. Like, just bare things. Like everything happened for a purpose. I'm a trustee now of 2 boards. Would I have been like that if I didn't go into care? I set up my own. I was doing Anthony Joshua's party. She was saying this just when I come in. I was booked for Anthony Joshua's son's birthday party 4 times last year. And I was looking at him thinking, you don't even know I was in care. And he's looking at me like, this girl's got energy. Ask Judith. And Judith is like, well done. And I didn't even tell him. Somebody like me from Little Stockwell with a mum that's mental health, jumping off bridge, slitting her wrist, is there doing Anthony Joshua's son's birthday party. Yeah. Like, that is mad. So it's just like, yeah. There's so many accomplishments, but I just think I'll say to my younger self, I'm proud of you. It was for a purpose. Whatever, and I say to these girls as well, everything that you're going through is for the future, it's for the destiny. They say that pressure makes diamonds. I feel like we had to go through the pressure, the furnace, to be the diamonds that we are all today. Because really and truly, we're all active agents of change. The care system is a mess. It's a mess. And now we're all campaigners. So we had to go through that because the representation and the young people that we're doing it for are looking at us. There's children going into care every minute. I'm looking at Ashley John Baptiste's documentary the other day. Every minute there's children going into care. At least we're all here to support them and be the younger generation for them. So that's what I would say to my younger self.
Wow, I think, those responses all deserve a strong amen. Amen. I would say your current situation is not your final destination. Don't look at your situation and think that you're never gonna make it out. You will. And I think I'll end lastly by saying broken crayons still color. It doesn't matter how broken you are. It doesn't matter how much you've hit rock bottom. Looking at my life, I do not know who my dad is. I see my mum in Brixton. She doesn't recognize me because she has mental health issues. And if I approach her, it will be hell on earth because to her, I don't exist. But broken crayons still color. Your life has meaning. And if you don't think it has meaning now, you're going to see the meaning one day because you didn't go through this for nothing.
Well done. Thank you. To the floor, do you have any questions for the panel? Ephraim, do you want to come up and I'll give you the mic?
Nice to see you as well. It's really nice that you
shared this fantastic experience that for all of us to hear. I work for the virtual school, and I sit on PEP meetings, and I'm always wondering what the children are thinking. You said now you perform in front of 5,000 people, but I'm sure it must have been intimidating to come through all the adults that are in meetings, in PEP meetings and stuff like that. So what I would like is, when I sit in those meetings, I would like to support them as much as I can, because education is important. And what I see is social workers, most of the time, they don't pay too much attention into the education of the children, because they're so engrossed into the court proceedings and whatever is happening to the life of the children. So how was your experience in terms of sitting in LAC reviews and PEP meetings? How would you have liked things to have happened in those meetings? What questions would you have liked? Did you understand what a PEP meeting was? After all, you had your needs in terms of, having the right equipment and stuff for the ambition that you had. How was that helpful for the PEP? There's people premium that is paid for every term. Was it helpful for you?
It was monumental. Education was my way out, was my way of success, really. Yeah. Like, if I didn't have that computer, if I still had the old computer that was chucked out from social services, I wouldn't have been able to do my work at college. Yeah. And I remember Frank Bottle Trust helped me with my education at university as well. But yeah, it was monumental. I wouldn't, if it wasn't for education, I don't know where I would be. Especially if I was with them first carers, I would just be a havoc. Education was my way out, so it's monumental. It needs to be that needs to be championed.
So how late was in terms of providing you that? How efficient was the people premium used in terms of your education interventions, tuitions, and laptops and stuff like that? So what I would like to do to highlight is how could that, it might seem quite small, but £400 per term and stuff like that, that go to revision guides and stuff like that. So how was PEP meetings for you? How was LAC reviews for you? And how would you have liked it to happen, basically?
I was really naughty in school, so the virtual schools hated me. I actually took a knife to school, got kicked out, got excluded, got put into a people referral unit, got arrested. Then my virtual school was like, we need to find you a school similar to Rick, really like drama, and they put me in a drama school, and that's what kept me going. One thing about the virtual schools is I think you guys have an integral job, but they don't give the young people agency. And what I mean by that is they don't let the young people speak about what they want. They talk across the room. They have 5 different people. You might even have the IRO. You have someone here you don't even know. And it's always changing. And everyone's having a discussion. I remember in those meetings you're talking about, everyone's having a discussion about you, but not with you. And I just didn't understand. It's almost like you're a caseload, you're a catalogue, and then you're just there as a tick box. You have to ask the young person, what is it that you want to do? What support package can we help you with? Even bring in the children in care participation officers. They know them really well. Bring them along to the meetings. They know your young people more than you guys. Look at extracurricular activities. My virtual school paid for me to do tuition, so I wanted to be a drama teacher. Didn't end up doing that, but I wanted to be a drama teacher, and she paid for me to be to get some tuitions for that. So look at some extra tuition. Really ask the young people. Put the young people at the center of what they want to do, not without them. I think that's the main thing.
Another question? Do you want to come up?
You were talking about hoarding.
Yes, David, you've got it.
I found this at home.
Oh, sorry.
And
Wait. Before he says that, I've been trying to find that. And now well done. I'm
you
happy.
can copy it if you give me a backhand.
Yes, I will, yeah.
No, and when I found this, I mean, that conference, it wasn't just a conference, it was the video that we produced after. It's really sad because I've just looked down the list of people who were involved in that, and quite a few of them have actually passed away. Some of them under not nice circumstances, but there were people like Lem Cisse was part of that group. There were other people who were involved in the National Association as well. And I always felt it was really important. I mean, when I first got my first job at the BBC, I went in there blazing. I'm from care, I've been in prison, you've got to give me a job. And, you know, and so I saw it as my job always to make sure that the ladder was there behind me. And in fact, they used to take the mickey out of me in Television Centre because I always have some waif or stray coming in saying, does David Atkinson work here? He says I can come and do some work experience. And so it's my job to continue. You know, for ages, I stopped doing these conferences and doing anything to do with kids in care because I knew there was a generation who were perfectly capable and willing and were closer to this system. I've only come out of the woodwork because of the Care Review. The Care Review asked me to be on the Expert by Experience board, and so all of a sudden I'm fired up again. I got a son. I've got to worry about my son, and I've got to worry about his future now. Unfortunately, I can't do the fostering that I used to do or any of those things. But what I will always do is I will always stand up and say that I was in care, because I think it's important for people to see that there are endless opportunities for us. And I do think that we've got strength from our experiences, as you were saying about the diamonds being under pressure. And so I just want, as I get older and older and older, I will still always tell people that I was in care. And I hope to achieve a few more things in life as well. So it's about letting everybody know that you were there.
And I think for us, the Black Care Experience, you're always going to be a part of us, David. This isn't us doing our thing and not having you with us. And if we could have Lem and all the others who are still around with us.
I think he charges a bit more than
I think he does. But we want you on this journey with us to give us, because what you did in the 1980s, when I read about all the things that you guys did, I learned a lot. Henry will tell you at our board meetings, I'll be like, I was reading about what happened in the 1980s and we're not doing that. We're going to do it this way because if it happens. So I learned from what you guys did. So I'm happy to continue to have you on our table.
I just wish I didn't have really tight trousers in the video because everyone keeps sending me this video and asking me anyway.
Can I say something on the...
They were in fashion then.
Yeah. On the role model point, I think the lady mentioned, only in 2022 have I ever met a black woman who is inspirational. Can I talk about your house? Has a massive mortgage, got a swanking car, runs her business, caring, just got so many, she's just such a role model. And at that time, I really needed to have someone. I don't have a lot of female role models because my mum is not a role model. So I latch on to black women that are really strong and empowering. And Judith gave me a DM. Or was it a call? So that took 2022 to find someone that looks like me, that I can relate to and say, wow, she's inspiring. She's come out of the care system and she's okay, like really okay, like mentally okay.
Thanks.
She's running a business, like her shit's on top. Like she's got, when she drove up to my car, when she showed me her car, I was like, wow, life is good. And it's like that shift. And I think at Santia, one time you said that to me, and it's a domino effect. Because she said to me, oh my God, you're really inspiring. And I said, oh my God, Judith is really inspiring. So it's like we need to see representation and role models as well. So yeah, thank you, Judith, to you.
Listen, hey, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. Yeah, I'm okay because I was in therapy for a year, 12 months, every week. I had to anyway, turn out a lot of stuff that I went through from being in care from age 9 to who I am at my age now. I'm 50 now, so I can say that. And I've said it on camera now, so I shouldn't really say that. But yeah, it's been a journey. And to turn back and inspire the next generation of kids in care coming up is not something that I wanted to do. My background is, my foster parents are Black Jamaican. It was either law, doctor, or hospital, and I ended up in the legal world. Imagine, ended up in the legal world, but then was arrested as a child in care. So now I go back into the legal world too. And then from there, into the financial industry. That's how I got the car, from working in the financial industry. But I learned a lot from working in the financial industry as a financial advisor and an investment manager. And then I just got bored. And then I got made redundant in 2012. Credit crunch happened, and I found myself working in a school. I just keep seeing all these kids getting kicked out. And I was like, why? What's going on here? And then I'd say to teachers, I was a TA. So from a financial investment manager to a TA, that salary was, I nearly lost my house. I was like, help me, Jesus. And then working in these schools and seeing all these kids getting excluded, I'm like, why? What's happening? Can I read their files? Reading their files, they're kids like me. And then I just began to just talk to them at break time, talk to them at lunchtime, and then put a program together to mentor them. So I work with Ephraim in the virtual school. The virtual school in Barking and Dagenham commissioned me to work with and mentor the children in care there. And then the Black Care Experience in 2021, 2022 just came out of what is happening with our children, because we talk about the hair and the skincare. I was seeing it all from working in my business from 2013 up to present day. And I was like, something has to change. Because in my organisation, we just don't mentor Black children. It's children across the board. But as I always say, I find that I have to work a bit harder when I'm working for the children that look like me. And that's how this came into being. So I'm just really honoured that I can help in whatever way, because it's not what I wanted to do, but someone spoke about purpose.
Judith, you made me want to be a woman when I saw your shoe collection.
Yeah, so I met David. I met David because I'm a part of the board, one of the board members for the Experts by Experience board for the care review, and that's where I met David. And I thought, oh my God, for me, it was like fangirling. Oh my God, I've met someone from the Black and Youth and Care Group. Oh my God, what can I talk to you? He was like, sure, anything you need. And then we went to a meeting, and I walked in, and the first time meeting David said to me, oh, I like your shoes. And for the whole board meeting, they were just like, my shoes. I was like, David, we're in a board meeting. It's not about the shoes. But that's where I first met David and realised that, I think it was somebody spoke about purpose. This is our purpose, meeting everyone. Because I didn't know that the care experience community was this big. I didn't know at all. Because being in care in the 80s, it was just me and my brother, who was, and then I didn't know much else about it. But Annie wants to say something. Come, Annie. This young lady I met as well from starting the Black and in Care group. Nice to have you here. Nice to have you here. She does such a lot. She's absolutely amazing. She won a National Diversity Award recently. So we are role models. It's been tough, and if you hear her story, we'll probably do an audience with, that's another idea, let me stop talking. But you'll get to hear our stories, and you can bring the Black children in your local authorities so that they can see us living colour role models to help them. Yeah, so Annie, over to you.
Oh, blessings. Believe it or not, I'm quite a shy person, so hearing stuff like that is really cringy for me, but thank you so much. Blessings to you. And what a privilege it is to be here today, to hear all of your stories. And thank you so much for doing this. Honestly, we need more people like you to do stuff like this, so thank you. My question is about healthy relationships. I'm a survivor of domestic abuse and sexual violence. I grew up in care my whole life. And there was never a time that I can remember anyone ever speaking to me about healthy relationships. What do you think we can be doing as a community, as a care community, to be kind of influencing how people in care now are getting access to that kind of conversation? Where do you think that starts? What can we be doing? And that's to anyone, really.
I was texting, I'm so sorry, I've got a bit of a drama going on.
I can answer that one.
Healthy relationships with siblings, with
I think just in general, like how are you going through a care system and not understand and not being aware of how to love you? And I think that's where our relationships, just in general, are able to develop healthily. That conversation with who you are is really key. So talking about our culture, loving and engaging with that is really important. But how do you get to the root of loving who you are? And those types of conversations will help develop stronger, healthy ones in the future that protect you from vulnerability, I think.
I'll be totally honest, and I'm going to try not to cry. I didn't know what love was until I had my son. I really genuinely didn't. And that was because people were paid to love me, people who were supposed to love me didn't love me, and I really genuinely didn't know what real love was until I loved him. Simple. So I can understand why a lot of the girls who were in care with me left with babies. You know, I just think it's I'm a very loving person towards my friends. I never used to be able to hug people, but I've got friends who made me do that, and I now see the benefit of that and can do it I gave you a hug when we arrived, didn't I? Without even being prompted. But, you know, I do think that's a really good question, and I do think that when the people who are supposed to love you maybe don't or can't or whatever, it just causes such confusion. And, you know, if you take relationship love, I never got that right either, you know, and so I just think it's about, and I'm in my late 50s. So, you know, if it took me so long to do that, and I think that's a challenge for all of us, is to be able to know how to love and be loved. Be loved.
Exactly.
He tells me all the time.
And knowing that you deserve to be loved. And I think it's those types of conversations that we need to be having a lot more. Like, you shouldn't be becoming an adult learning how to love you. And that's something that I'm seeing consistently across the care community. You know, I work with young women as well that are in care or survivors, just like me. And Keely's one of our ambassadors. And no one is talking to us while we're going through the care system about, how do you love yourself? You're amazing. Like, how do you do that? Sorry.
I just think it's a fantastic question. And when I've got a friend that's a PA, and all her caseload is care experienced mums. They're all like 15 and up. And she's just like, I don't know what we can do, because these girls are just going through the same relationship issues. The boys are battering them. The boys are taking the money. Like, it's almost like they target us like that. That's how it feels. And I've got a few hands up there, but just wanted to wrap up and say, it's only now that I'm 27 that I'm getting therapy to do the work that you're talking about. And I call it work because I have to really dig deep, especially now I'm in a relationship. I'm consistently fighting battles of, like, you know, I'm a people pleaser. Judith will tell you. I can put my line out for people. My last £10 for people. You always want to be, like, inserted into people's lives. You always want to be, like, loved. You'll do anything to crave that love, even when they do you bad. And I think the therapy that I'm getting, I'm really lucky that Become is paying. If you guys know Become, they're a national charity. I'm really lucky that they're investing in my mental health and they're paying for my therapy. And I think the therapeutic intervention and also having someone like Judith that's like a mentor will really help young girls. It needs to be therapy. We need to have therapy right from the start. Why are we going through all of that transitional mess? Then we're meant to have babies on top of that. Like, look at the logic. You've taken me out of dysfunction, not helped me to heal, and then I have a child, and you wonder why my child goes into care. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why my mum couldn't cope. And so it's like, we need to have therapy. Like, I think for me, that is the major, and it's hard work. I had therapy on Friday, and I was bawling my eyes out, talking about my relationship. And she's like, you need to heal, because you're just bleeding on him. Every little thing. You know, my partner, I've done so much, like, and it's just like, he's like, I just got to deal with it because you've been in care, but it's not right. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like, the therapy needs to be put in place as soon as we're about to transition out of care. When we're in care.
As soon as you start.
Going in care is not the solution.
Yeah.
And that's what the disconnect is they think that because they're taking you, sorry. That's what the disconnect is that when you're taken into the care system from a vulnerable situation, that's the solution. When that's not the only solution, it needs to be long-term, needs to be ongoing. The emotional support is lacking in the care system, and it really, they need to invest more in it because it's so important. You shouldn't be getting to transition age or leaving care 10 years later as an adult, you know, doing that work. It needs to be ongoing. So yeah, thank you so much for being so open.
Okay, we've got 10 minutes left. Manna. Is another lovely care experience, young lady. Whoa, you're all coming out. Nice to meet. And this is my first time meeting you in person. Always on Zoom. Nice to see you.
Yeah, do you know what? I just wanted to make some points on what you guys were talking about there, because I think that is a really important question that Annie just brought up. And it's something that we was actually speaking about with, some of you might know, Alia as well, because we recently recorded a podcast which was going to come out soon, and we were speaking about this. And the main issue is that what I found in my own personal experience was social workers being afraid of having that conversation. And what people don't realize is when you don't have that conversation with us, we end up going out there and into situations where we are harmed. This is how sexual exploitation happens. This is how criminal exploitation happens, because we're too afraid to tackle those challenges, thinking, oh, the young person's not going to like us. Oh, do you know what? It's too much work for me to do right now. Oh, maybe I'll try and do it another time. And this is where we let the young people down. So in my own work, what I have found is keeping it real. And actually saying to that young person, do you know what? I'm recognizing what's going on here. I can see what you're doing. If I see a young girl going out late at night, I say to them, do you know what? What's going on really? You're going out, oh, it's just my friends. That ain't just your friends. Come on, it's guys picking you up late at night. Actually questioning them, challenging them, showing them that, do you know what? I actually care, and I'm here to look out for you. And I think that's what we have to do, and even like formulating groups as well, because in my work we have found that formulating groups, because sometimes young people find it difficult to like sit down. I'll tell you guys, when I was seeing Bromley YL cams when I was younger, I was telling fantasy stories, because you don't really know, you're just sitting in front of this professional, so you're just telling them stories, you're not telling them what's really going on deep down. And like Henrietta, it's only now that you're really dealing with those issues. But what I'm finding is young people want to sit amongst their peers, have these discussions, have people actually supporting them, and you can also support them one-to-one, but also facilitate those discussions so that they can have it together and learn together as well. And also, don't look down upon people who have care experience and say, oh, don't talk to a young person about your care experience, because you know what? That's what makes the difference. And that's what many of us here have actually learned. When a young person's able to identify with you and actually see that, oh, you do understand what I'm going through. You get it. They believe you more. They trust you more because they know that, do you know what? You're trying to help me get to that better place. So yeah, it is about early intervention, therapy, facilitating groups, and yeah, challenging and really supporting them.
I was just going to say, it's really upsetting me that, well, it's making me pleased that they're finally trying to understand about county lines. I've been 15 years ago, one of my foster kids was going up to Ipswich backwards and forwards. And we knew about this 15 years ago, but they were so busy criminalising the young person rather than talking about these groomers who are grooming young people. I mean, if you knew the lengths to which it's got to now and what is really happening to young boys who are involved in that whole thing, it's awful. Yeah. So and again, I couldn't stop them because they were earning so much money, you know, from doing it, and it needed the whole system to kind of understand, including I was going to say filth, I mean police, including the police, who I've been to a couple of conferences recently, and they really are starting to understand it a bit more, but it is about being real. Again, I would get between them and the door, you know, to stop them from going out at certain times when I knew they were going to put themselves at risk. And I know foster carers who are told, no, just let them go. You know, that's got to stop.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point, because one thing I'm just going to add on to this, when it comes to these situations, people just let you go. And what ended up happening to me was when I was moving out, I was in a domestic violent relationship, and I actually showed up at social services to collect my keys. And my foster carer, who Henrietta knows, my foster carer, she actually said to social services, please don't let her move out. She is not ready to move out. She's at risk. But when I showed up to those offices with him behind me, they literally just handed me my keys and said, oh, I hope you enjoy your flat. So that's why I always say it's about challenging and really working with us and talking to us about it.
Thank you. Jada?
In regards to relationships, one thing I want to add, the reason why I said siblings, because to be honest, I've got 5 sisters, they're a handful, and the majority, we're all care leavers now, but in regards to actually just having a healthy relationship with each other, really have a healthy relationship with one, it's been really difficult just to bring the family together. And obviously, in a normal situation, maybe the mum, maybe the uncle is the kind of mediator that brings everyone together. But because we ain't got that, and I got to a point where I was just I can't do this by myself, that's been really difficult. And I don't know how to really navigate that. But that's why I said siblings, because that's been my problem as of late. Just how do you, when you haven't had that relationship when you was in care to be together, how do you get the family together post-care? It's been, mega difficult.
And I want to add to that, for myself and my brother, we were in different foster care placements. I was in 1 foster care placement, my brother was in 4. So he went from home to home to home to home. But for me, how I'm now able to have healthy relationships with even my biological family and my foster family is the therapy that I went through when I came out of being in care. Because when I came out of being in care, I was sectioned because it went to pot, because I'd held on to so much from age 9 to age 30. And then when I was 29, it's like my whole emotional and mental well-being just crashed. And then everyone recognized, right, she needs therapy. And then from me going into therapy, it's really funny, it's really weird. I'm the person that holds the entire family together now. My mum will call me. When my dad was alive, he passed away just before lockdown in 2021. He'd call me about something. I've got 2 stepbrothers as well from my dad's side. They'd call me about something. Then my foster family will call me about something. And I'm managing all of them. And I'm like, you don't need to go to therapy, man. And, just because you went, you think... And I'm like, no, it helps. And that's taught me to, when I didn't love my mom, I love her to bits now. When I didn't have time for my dad, when he was alive, before he passed, we had a good time. I was daddy's girl over again. I love my foster parents, even though my foster mum died in 2007, but my foster dad is still alive in Jamaica. I love them to bits, and I'm being loved by them. But it wouldn't have been that way if I didn't have the therapy that I needed and that I got when I was an adult. That's how I've been able to learn about love.
And therapy's expensive, you know. It ain't cheap.
Yeah.
So off the back of that.
But you see, I had there's a lot of people. I would say I have really good mentors in my life as adult mentors, and a lot of my mentors work in the therapeutic area. So the therapy that I should have paid for, I didn't, if that makes sense.
I just got to say, I've never had therapy, but music, as I said earlier, music has been my therapy. Just the fact of just getting your emotions out on a page, I was just is this how I really felt about certain experiences? And to really back that up, I had a mental breakdown. I had to leave university because it was just a madness at the time. And I didn't, the social worker didn't get me a therapist. I was just literally a gap year, just having fun. But in that year, that's what I mean. That's when I found music. That's when I was uploading my tunes to MySpace at the time, and that gap year was monumental to me being here today, just letting out my feelings and getting out whatever I was feeling up here. Later on in regards to therapy, YouTube's been my therapy to a certain extent. Looking into Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Wayne Dyer, who are self-help. Motivational speakers, but I haven't had formal therapy per se, but just the idea of just expressing yourself and letting out all them emotions that you got up here on the page, it's made me feel weightless and free, so it's mega important.
I didn't have a question. I just kind of wanted to touch on that therapy about, like, you know, earlier on before you get into care, or even when you start into care and you start your journey. I work with the London's Violence Reduction Unit with the Mayor of London. So we are one of my jobs. And yeah, like, I'm constantly talking about care experienced children and what we need to do for early intervention and prevention, especially when it comes down to young females and also young males, because I feel like a lot of young boys, they don't even want to speak to anyone. And I feel like when you put it into place earlier on, I remember I went to a Peru. That was like, when I was living in London, I got put into a Peru. My life was a complete mess. And I remember one day I had like this worker that just came in, and she just like looked at me and was like, I was kind of mad. I just stormed out of my lesson. She looked at me and she was like, come in my office and just sit. And I was like, I'm not coming to sit in your office kind of thing. Like, what are you trying to do to me? Like, this is not mediation. And then once she closed the door, and I think she said a couple words to me, I just cried my eyes out, like, let every single thing out. And from then I went into care, because everything I was going through when I was telling her, nobody knew until I told her. And that was when I was in like year 10, year 9. So putting those things into place, where there's like a support worker at school, or someone that actually goes to these young people who are in care, or troubled young people that are getting excluded, because that's something that we're trying to work on as well. Like, if there's someone there, because I understand social workers have a lot on their case, and I feel like, you know, it is, I wouldn't say it's an excuse, but at the same time, I do understand it. But maybe in these services, there should be someone or a team that works on the mental health of actual young people, because you can save so many young people's lives from earlier on. Like, they don't need to go through all of this to get to the end and then realize I need help, when you can make that help from earlier on. Could take an hour session every week at school, or, you know, like you said, support groups. It makes so much of a difference. So just speaking on my experience for myself, like, even though I didn't get that therapy I needed, and it's something that I potentially would want to get in, like, do eventually, but that one conversation definitely made a difference to my life. So, yeah.
Wow. Henrietta. Wow. We're at lunch break now for 30 minutes. So on that note, I want to say thank you to our beautiful panel, Keely, David, Henrietta, and also Rick. And we'll break for a 30-minute lunch break, maybe a bit more, but I'll let you know. And lunch is served outside. Just to also remind everyone, if anyone feels that they need any therapeutic support, Shireen is downstairs. So it's through this door and then down the stairs. She's already been made use of already, so if anybody else just wants to be settled and supported and signposted, Shireen is downstairs for anyone. Is that okay? Yep. Okay, back in the room. Right, so 2 sections left. Shaping our future in terms of what needs to change and how it needs to change, and then we go to celebrating our Black care experience. We'll do that. That's the final section of today. So for the shaping our future, what needs to change and how, we're going to go into mixed groups. And I'm not going to do number 1, number 2, number 3. How many people do you think is in the building right now? How many do we have here? Right, so if we do groups of 5, and it's got to be mixed. So it's social care and care experience. So care experience, you can be in one group each, if you can. But groups of 5 or 6. So you can have a group over there, a group here, a group there, a group there, a group there, a group there. They just spread out in the building, and someone have in the building with you a notepad and pen. Brilliant. So together, and we're going to have a lot of time for this, because I really want you to get into the meat and bones of this section. So if we say we'll come back at 2:10. That's good time. So, and then please nominate someone to give feedback from the group. We don't want anyone to be caught off guard. Where is Bianca? Somewhere. Right. So what you're going to discuss is what needs to change in terms of how to improve the care experience for black children in the care system, what needs to change, and how. So we're shaping the future. What do we want it to look like? How do we want our black children to be cared for in the care system in order to them to have more positive outcomes when they leave care? So there you go. Off you go. So which group would like to come up first? I could nominate a group. So make sure someone's there to hold your paper up as well and also talk us through. It's Emma and Shadim. Put their hands together. Woo! Perfect. So we stand here, Shadim. And Emma, I'll hand you the mic.
Okay, thank you. So, first of all, we talked about the need for independent therapy, not CAMS therapy, independent therapy, not doing a mass... Oh, am I not on? Yeah. Is it? Yeah, okay. So not doing a big downer on CAMS, but knowing that CAMS isn't always the right thing for our children and young people, and that's if you're lucky enough to get in through the door. So independent therapy being absolutely vital. We found out in our group, and we were kind of surprised that we didn't know, that Bernardo's is offering free therapy to care leavers. I don't know how many people knew that, but we didn't, so we got quite excited in our group. We talked about creative art therapy, whether that's drama, music, dance, etc., photography. There were a couple of examples that we had: Element, Photo Voice, Verbatim, Formula. So we talked about the importance of that, and actually we were thinking that for our children and young people, sometimes it's the creative therapy that they will be able to access, feel okay, feel safe enough doing in a group setting when they're still a child, still a young person. Maybe the more deeper therapy can happen later, which is when we need the independent therapy. We have valued today, especially listening to care experienced, those of you that have been courageous and shared your experiences and stories. That seems to be vital for those of us working in this sector. That's the key bit that often is missing. So today has been an absolute, just amazing, wonderful. We talked about stigma. We dipped our toe in the debate around, should care experience be a protective characteristic? Is that something? We know that that's a hot topic. There are positives, there are things that are difficult, but we did explore that a tiny bit in our group. We know we need to recruit more black carers, full stop. We know we need to do that. Local authorities are often not getting it right. So we need to draw on experiences of agencies like yours. I'm going to get you to talk in a minute about how to do that better, because I don't think local authorities are doing it very well. So we talked about that. We talked about skilling up our foster carers that are looking after black children that are not black themselves or of a different culture, different faith, and so on, and what that looks like. Who's doing that? Is that bespoke training? Is that meaningful? Is it mandatory? Is it optional? It shouldn't be optional. It should be something that we're expecting our carers to do, and that's an absolute must. We talked a bit about the values of foster carers and why they wouldn't be meeting cultural needs. We had the example, which I've heard before, and I'm sure many people have, of Muslim children being fed pork, for example, by a foster carer, and how horrified we were at that. But that's not the first time those of us in our group had heard that example. So we then were just a bit about the motivations of some foster carers and what's going on there. That needs unpicking. That needs a lot of work and thinking. Carers to be trained, equipped to be trauma-informed. Again, that feels like a kind of, it's quite an easy thing to say, but it's a big deal, and it involves a lot of investment and time and energy and absolute commitment from the agency to be able to do that properly and in a way that looks after everyone. So looks after the carers so they can do their very best job for the children, young people they're looking after. I think you can go now. And I'm really rubbish with the mic.
Yeah. Thank you. I think you covered most of it. I think what we also spoke about is the voices of care experienced people, and ensuring that they have that confidence and that space to be able to share their experiences. But a big part of my work and obviously connecting with Judith, my organisation's My Foster Family, so we work nationally to increase the number of diverse foster carers across the country, particularly from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. And we see this as a really big challenge because, you know, we don't want to have to deal with the trauma that children experience through care as well. We can fix some of that by giving children a better experience in their care journey. So diversity of foster carers was a big part of the work that we do and what we were discussing. But also we do recognise that it's not always possible to perfectly match children by their faith or their culture or their ethnic groups. So when you do have cross-cultural placements, those foster carers need a lot more support. There's definitely not enough resources out there. And I think this is where community should step in. So whilst we obviously always put a lot of pressure on local authorities, and we were speaking earlier about the number of cases every social worker has, sometimes it's just not physically possible to give that sort of bespoke level of care or support. So whether it's churches, whether it's mosques, whether it's community organisations, just feel that the whole community needs to step up. So there's an organisation called Home for Good, some of you may have heard of. They work within the Christian community. My organisation, My Foster Family, we do a lot of work in the Muslim community, and we both encourage mosques, for example, to speak about foster care and kids in care during the Friday sermon, and Home for Good do that with the churches on a Sunday to encourage them to include that in the sermon, because it's important that we start to normalise this conversation, and children who are care experienced shouldn't feel stigmatised. And often we also see that foster carers in communities feel a little bit stigmatised, so they may not share with their wider networks that they're actually fostering. So I think that's something that we all collectively have to change to give children a voice and give foster carers and of course social workers and everybody who works in the sector better care and support. Cool.
Thank you. Okay, group number 2, or the second group. You want to run up?
There you go. Thank you.
Hi. We covered a lot from your group. In terms of therapy, we were actually thinking that it should start at a younger age. Sometimes with some of our agencies, we provide the therapy, but the local authority won't allow us to provide it for the young people because they want CAMS to be involved, or they want them in a long-term placement first. So there's a delay in us being able to provide it. In terms of our young people care experienced, there's sometimes a lack of support, and we also said that we need to be providing the carers, sorry, I'm a bit nervous, provide the carers with a lot of training, especially around diversity. And it's not just attending the training, it's also putting it into practice. So on the supervising social workers' visits, to check that things have been followed through and it's not just a tick box. We had an example of a foster carer who was caring for a child, and it's a white foster carer, and I was told to go and do an annual review. I hadn't met the carer before, but I read the file, and I'd seen that previously she'd said that she didn't want to care for a black child because she'd had an experience before and was told that, you know, she wasn't doing it correctly, she hadn't been doing the skin care, hair care, etc. So I went along to the house to do the annual review, and I said to her, how are you coping now? How are you managing to care for this the child that you've got? Because she's dual heritage. And the shock, the look on that carer's face was like, what? She thought that she was caring for a white British child, as in fact she was caring for a dual heritage child. So when we talk about matching, somebody got it wrong there. But the other bit to that for me was, why would you allow a carer to say that they can't care for a black child, or they wouldn't care for a black child? So that was something. So what we said was we wouldn't allow for racism. So, you know, don't hide it, don't pretend it doesn't exist, deal with it.
Some of the other stuff that we also spoke about in regards to like the therapy was around like the group discussions, just from like some of the work that some of us have actually done and seen it work in terms of like facilitating those group discussions with the young people and their peers. Also formulations, which is something that I've recently been doing with young people. So it's basically actually setting up like a multi-agency meeting, but the meeting is actually led by the young person, and then the young person basically shares like what their worries and their concerns are, and the job of the professionals is then to look within that network of everyone who's in the meeting who can support the young person around those different areas, and then by the end come up with like a support plan for that young person that they are happy with and that they have actually had their voice lead all of it. So we was talking about formulations. We also spoke about the need to improve the long-term strategies and also improving on the sibling relations. As we all know, that is a big problem at the moment, as we've seen like with Ashley's like documentary recently and us talking about it today, the amount of care experienced people that have broken, fragmented relationships now with their siblings because those relationships were not promoted. So really looking at how we promote those relationships, which I think also comes down to like fostering panels. And fostering panels, I think it's important to get more care experienced people onto the fostering panels, because what they're finding at the moment on fostering panels, as a member of a fostering panel myself, is that you're not getting as many of the younger generation joining as well on fostering panels. So you're not getting that new relevant voice about what's currently happening. So it's about trying to get those guys onto there and also joining things like universities, because not everyone knows that a lot of universities actually have people with lived experience steering groups, and those steering groups actually work with student social workers and provide like experiences, provide advice on what things to look out for, so that the next generation of social workers can be just as committed, just as passionate, and have even more knowledge and the skills to equip them to face those challenges that we previously faced. So yeah, and then I'm going to pass it.
I think you've done everything. Okay. Yeah, I think we've done everything. I think what we were talking about as well is representation, because a lot of the time you talk about outcomes for, you know, mainly white foster experience people, foster experience children, but actually black care experienced children, not, you know, we don't know much about their outcomes. It's not being very widely like represented. It's kind of like they've been left and forgotten. And I think that it's quite complex because we, you know, care experienced people deal with a lot of things. Even in my journey, I was privately fostered, and I think that wasn't really recognised a lot of the time. What else was there anything else? Ofsted. Yeah. The 16 plus, where's that?
Oh no, we forgot to write it. But yeah, sorry. We was talking about, because basically I was telling everyone there's a house right down the road from here that I used to work in, that was very poor in terms of standards for young people, and they was getting about £3,000 a week for each young person. And we was talking about the fact that they was able to get away with running such a poorly run house because there was no Ofsted, because once there's a 16 plus provision, we don't really need Ofsted. And that's how a lot of these like private organizations, where you are finding a lot of the young people that have been sexually exploited, criminally exploited, or their mental health is getting worse and stuff, you're finding that these organizations are actually not being inspected. So even though they should get inspected, because there's no Ofsted, no one actually knows what's really going on. And it was on the news a number of years ago, but they've stopped talking about it. But it's something that we need to continue looking at and continue working on to at least get them to change or shut down those organizations.
Just to let you know that I work for a charity called TACT, and we actually have like a care experience support, which goes on from once the young people hit age 16, around that 16 to forever. And it's called TAC Connect, and it's a community that supports all the young people through whatever stage and whatever's happening in their lives. So that's me.
The story about the foster carers not knowing the ethnicity of the child is not the first time I've heard that. And it's really, that's a warning to social care. You've got to know, because if, just say for example, and this is probably so out of the box, or just an example, say the child was a black child, dual heritage, looks more white, is placed in a racist home, and then the foster carers realise, oh, she's black. How fast or how not fast do we move that child out of their care? So from the child gets into the care system, we have to know what ethnic origin this child is, so we don't add trauma onto trauma, if that makes sense. Yeah. So group number 3 at the back there, do you want to come up? Who's coming to represent you all? Come on, anybody who hasn't spoken before? That's fine, that's fine. Give them a round of applause as they come. Woo, woo, woo! Come up. There you go.
Okay, just some of the ones maybe that we haven't already heard. I think one of the really good ideas that we heard within our group was kind of something that I'm going to plug Norfolk. I don't work for Norfolk, but I've been hearing some really amazing things that they've been doing today. So in terms of kind of their family meetings that they're having, both before young people become looked after and afterwards, it's kind of involving the young person and their wider network. So, you know, that seemed like something that was really important. And I guess for me, I know where I am currently and kind of historically in my own social work journey. Quite often it feels that you know, we don't really involve families very much, and we, like I think other people have said, we talk about our young people whilst they're in the room, so we're not actually saying, you know, what's your view or what would you like? We kind of think we know best because we're the professionals and we're the experts, and this is what we're going to give you. So some of the other things that we spoke about was kind of creative ways of accessing support and learning. And again, this was something wonderful that kind of Norfolk are doing, and I think we really need to learn. So I'd like Norfolk to host something in future, I think, to kind of champion some of what you're doing, because it sounds as though, you know, despite the fact that your ethnic community is quite small, you're going above and beyond, I think, what a lot of perhaps the London authorities are not doing when we have vast ethnic young people within our care system. Expectations regarding bonding attachments, that was really quite important, because I think kind of one of my frustrations for a lot of my young people is black boys in particular seem to go into residential settings. They don't go into foster placements because actually you're not suitable for that type of placement. And I think it was really quite interesting that some of our young people were saying, actually, that didn't work for us, actually. We didn't want that relationship in the foster care. We preferred to be in that. And I think, again, it's just thinking about that choice and really trying to rethink the way that we're working with our young people. And again, that links in with kind of options of choice. It's saying to them, actually, do you know what? What is it about these placements maybe that haven't worked? You know, and our carers in the group, they said before they accept a placement, they meet with the young people and say, do you know what? This is what we do in our house. What are your expectations for us as your carers? And they come up with something together. And again, that was such a beautiful idea. And I think, do you know what? For that young person, they feel valued, because it's like, actually, you've asked me. How many of us, you know, actually ask our young people? A really important one was thinking about tracing backgrounds, and I think for all of us, we were able to reflect on young people we've worked with or even ourselves, where we've just not known where we've come from, you know, and you know, we heard the panel as well talking about that a bit earlier. And so many of us have young people who at one point are told something by a social worker, and then the new social worker comes along and says, oh no, sorry, that's not quite right. I've just read something in the paper file, and actually mum's from here and dad's from somewhere else. And there was a really good idea about, you know, thinking about, can we actually trace these young people's background? So not just rely on what we've got on file, or kind of maybe something that mum thinks might have been the case, or, you know, actually do some real work for our young people to give them some factual information. Better recording, and I think for me this is a pet hate. You know, I was one of those social workers that used to have paper files, and you know, I remember when our admin, and we did have admin back in the days when I started to be scanning that information on, and things have got lost. You know, so I know now, kind of looking at information about some of my young people, and I'm like, there's a massive gap, like we've said, you know, what happened between those years for my young person? And you know, when we're having those conversations, we can't fill those gaps in for them. And, you know, we have a responsibility as corporate parents to make sure that we give our young people the right information and as much information as we can. And I think it's also about really being open and honest as well, because sometimes we don't know. And rather than giving them a narrative that's just not true, let's be honest about that, but do our best to try and find it out. And that then links in again with kind of knowing their journey. I'm going to hand over because you had
I don't need to add much more, I don't think. I think just coming back into my role sort of around the sort of family network and you know, children do have to come into care. We know that sometimes that's inevitable. There isn't a family member that can look after them. But that doesn't mean there isn't a family member that doesn't want to remain connected or doesn't want to share their experience of that child in a positive way. And that's really important for my role, as we were saying, about ensuring that there's joint perspectives on that child. It's not just the social worker's perspective. It's not just the teacher's perspective or the professionals. It's the auntie. Oh, well, I remember taking them to the park, and you know, that is their social narrative, that is the child's identity, and it's seen from a variety of perspectives, because I know I'm a different person in work to the person I am at home, and the people at home know me better than anyone. So we need to just bear that in mind when we're bringing a child into our corporate care, that actually they may have a myriad, not always. We know that there are children who may arrive here from other countries that don't have that, but where possible, it's really important to get that joint perspective and the joint planning of care, so a child can remain connected to their siblings, so they have regular contact. And you said about the sort of being creative. So one of the families that I worked with, the worker and the carers, etc., is mum and daughter then had family time in a community centre with a kitchen. So they cooked together. Mum didn't bring the food, they cooked together, and that was their traditional food. And that's what we need to be thinking. Let's just be a bit creative and say, actually, you know, let's make that better quality family time where we can. Yeah. And the recording again, I think, do it in a child-friendly way, because we, as care experienced people, are going to look at that file one day. We're going to look at that file and see what you wrote. And we all know, anyone who's read their file, not that I've been brave enough yet, but anyone who's read their file will see what that perspective of others was. So it's nice to see that Auntie said nice things and other people. Yeah. I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. The creativity in that group was fantastic. It's just so out of the box. I wish that the care experience world was like that tomorrow. Like, yeah, we're here, but not yet. Our final group, who's going to come up? A round of applause for who's coming up. That means, Rick, you're not allowed to say anything. Oh, okay, good.
I thought we were going to do it together. You got this. That was a discussion. Okay. Actually, we just really kind of talked about a range of things. We kind of started setting the world to rights, really. So we looked at, you know, from a foster carer's perspective in terms of what they would like to do and offer a child in their home. And obviously, due to the constraints around how
foster carers of parents. Some foster carers found it really kind of difficult, and we looked at the reasons why things were the way they are. For some, the way that foster carers are expected to provide the care and support, when we know sometimes children need to be loved and nurtured in a different way. One of the main things we said out of that was actually we just need more foster carers. We know we need more foster carers. We discussed therapy and the need for therapy for young people for people that look just like them. So we know that CAMS is CAMS, and they don't always provide the level of intervention that is required and when it's needed. So we know that therapy needs to happen earlier on, and for people that are able to relate to young black people in care. We also talked about having that support beyond 18, very real support beyond 18, really practical support. This is where we were talking about showing the love and the hug that you would give a child in foster care. And really it was about, when we had the discussion really for foster carers and their experience, it was about the balance of care and protection, both for foster carer and the young child, particularly when it looked at allegations and what that might have meant. And sometimes the impact of foster carers where allegations are made against them, and actually because of that whole process, you tend to lose foster carers. So we were having a discussion about the whys and wherefores and how really difficult that is to manage, and perhaps we need to look at training around how we prepare foster carers around that a lot more robustly. We also talked about, really listening and learning from our young people and actually providing them with tangible outcomes. So, we have our groups. It's about really the old-fashioned you said and we did kind of thing. We need to make sure that we give them what it is that they ask from us. Like I said, we talked about the therapists and what they look like, and the importance of connection and engagement. And like I said, earlier on intervention for our young black people in care. That was it. Thank you.
Can we give them another round of applause? Oh gosh, I'm back on the stage again. If we can do musical chairs and everyone could just go back into their original seats. Let's get the legs walking around. So everyone just go back in their original seats. And if everyone can stay standing. So if you can stay standing. Don't sit down. Don't sit down, just stay standing. Young people too at the back. Okay, so I need you guys to make a loud noise. If you guys have a loud yes. If you guys have enjoyed the whole afternoon, this afternoon. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. I can't hear you. Yeah. Wonderful, you can tell I'm an entertainer. So we've spoken, we've had lots of great discussions, and what's really great about this event is that Judith is programmed a little bit more of creativity and fun, because yes, it's very bleak. Yes, it's very, hard and listening to these stories, and we've cried. But also, we need to celebrate. We've got joy. We've got some creative care experience people in this room. And yes, it's really sad, but also we need to leave on a really positive note. So big round of applause for Judith for doing that. So first of all, see how they got Henry to lift the energy. See? First of all, I want to hear a big round of applause for our first act, and that's Rick Flo.
One, two, 1, 2. Can you hear me nice and clear, yeah? All right, before we go into this tune, I just want to give a bit of context. So with me in music, my first album was called A Boy Called Rick, which was inspired by a child called It. Back in 2012, 2013, that was literally the only context I knew in regards to like a popular, well, not popular, but a care experience story that was within media that has shown like, look, I've turned my trauma into triumph. And I really wanted to channel that story within my music. So this tune is called Fam. Now, it's inspired by The Last Tree and the farming film. Have any of you guys watched that film? Yeah. That was the first time I've seen the black care experience within media, within film, that really resonated with my own experience. So I just wanted to give you that context before we get into it. But yeah, Steve, run it. Let's do it. I'll do it a cappella just before, okay. This is a true So as I said, this is inspired by The Last Tree and farming film. So we can hear the lyrics real clearly. Can you turn that a little bit up on the speakers here as well? Check. Listen. Age-old habits, motherland practice, landed and free, seen as my status. In the motherland I would be, living with others fam in the city where opportunities are more than dads now. London to Lagos to another village, to better education, short-term care with white siblings. Gotta make mother proud, read my books, become a doctor. Just about anything, not creative, that's what's honored. Fostered the inception, broken passive parents, cause and effect. Dislocated to what? Measure your carers might be racist, but you gotta count your blessings. It could have been worse in the city, neglected with no reception. Your PlayStation is imagination, use that as your weapon. This is the only way to avoid the mindset of depression. Or join a gang, find belonging in what lost boys understand, and where rage has a plan. Fam. Yeah, fam. When I reminisce over you, my God, yeah. We're woman. Now the second verse really means a lot to me, listen. Check. Themes of abandonment, rejecting attachment. Lonely hearts run wild, beauty in the madness. Radiant child, Basquiat the canvas. Nurture magic, break the pattern, gifted before Santa. Home alone after care, doesn't have that banter. Thoughts of suicide, ricochet this atlas. But I gotta maintain the practice, came a long way from that plastic on the mattress. Child of the state, had a taste to change the palate. Hunger like Steve McQueen. Black boy with a dream, be the change you want to see. Farm what you believe in, never land direct. Not all is what it seems. Trauma heals with time, but the art is where it breathes. In the rise of the phoenix, you'll switch up the meaning. Your character will feel it. Close closet, summon prophet. See light in your religion. You got this. Trust, you got this. Yeah, fam. When I reminisce over you, my God. Hey, the Black Care Experience Conference 2022. Hey, the vibes are being live, trust me. Yeah. It's been the rise of the phoenix. I hope your characters have risen. It's more life and more giving. You already know. Hey, it's more life and more giving. Yeah, bless Judith, man. Hey, it's more life and more giving.
Massive round of applause! Wow!
Nah, blessings.
Wow! Themes of abandonment. I don't know the rest, but I like it.
Rejecting attachment.
Wow, you lifted the energy that we needed. Can we give him another round of applause?
Nah, love,
wow.
Always.
You know what, Rick, here, when I was standing there, I was thinking, why don't we have a care experience festival and you lead it? So Judith is on the Expert by Experience board. I'm going to pipe that in. We're going to have a conversation. We got care experience young people that need to see a black man like you, relatable, amazing, talented, and we need to vibe and celebrate. So another round of applause.
Blessings, thank you.
That was wicked. Wow. So we have our last act for this evening. When I say this girl is so inspirational, she is so... One time, so I've never met Keynote. No, we've met before, isn't it? No, this is the first time we're meeting in person. No, second time. Oh, yeah, second time. Anyway, before I even met her, I used to listen to her poems to uplift me in the lockdown when I was depressed. When I was feeling depressed, I would listen. I never told you this. I would play your poems, and it would give me a little hope. And I just think like she's so talented that like you need to take spoken word to the next level, because people haven't seen you that need to see you. People haven't heard you that need to hear you. So I just dropped a little seed there. You might want to take a seat because this one's going to be good. Another round of applause for Keely!
Wow, wow, wow. Henrietta really set the bar high there. I really think Rick should have went after me. But anyway, we'll do this. Let me just swap hands. Yeah. So this is a poem about the Black care experience. Here goes. You see, the Black care experience differs from others. We rely on our culture from our fathers and mothers, and when we're placed in homes that don't fulfill that reflection, our lives move further away from that protection. Let's talk about affection. The Black love language is deep. Gone are the days that we're dealt with cheap. You see, we're shipped out of ends because they can't handle our might. Nah, it's about time that we get things right. You see, if London's our home, why move us to Staffordshire? Do you think that would make us happier? Then you mistake our passion for being aggressive. Please listen to the realities of this message. I'm Black and I'm proud, I'll say it out loud. I'm Black and I'm proud if you're ever in doubt. I just hope that you'll hear me out. If you didn't hear me then you'll hear me now. You see, professionals, you need to check our resume. Black young people can't always use Tresemme. Our products consist of Palmer's and Sheer Moisture. If you didn't know this before, it costs more than an oyster. Just give us budget and treat us like we're human. The Black care experience and system really does need improvements. But I'm done with mentioning the negatives. We've become Black care leaders and executives. Big up Henrietta, Rick Flo, and Judith in the building. These are living examples that we can all win. Big up Henrietta, Rick Flo, and Judith in the building. These are living examples that we can all win. Thank you.
Oh my gosh! Big round of applause for Keely! So if you guys didn't know, next week, let me even test them. Next Friday, does anyone know what that is? Care Day. Keely wrote, I think last year, you wrote an amazing poem for Care Day. Go online, check it. I sent it to all my young people and they still listen to it right now. Send it out to your young people. It's absolutely amazing. Next week, Friday, is Care Day. Take all the inspiration you've got from everyone today and influence your young people and support them and show love. I think that's the massive theme I took from sitting down today, is love and care. There's no care in the care system, so all of you can spread that. And I just want to say another big thank you to Judith. And I know I keep saying that, but she started it. She's picked up the mantle. She's picked up the mantle. And I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you for coming. Judith, are you going to do some closing words? For all of you for coming, because, I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking, you guys could have done anything on your Saturday. Anything. I know there's a lot to do in this pandemic, and you've chosen time to sit here and to create a difference for your young people. So thank you from me and the team. We love you. Thanks again.
Wow. I'm so excited already. I'm so excited. My mind is buzzing with what we're going to do next, or not do next, or maybe do next. I don't know. But I've just got my closing. Okay, so where do we go next? What's the next steps? So I'll reveal this today. This is the only thing I can say today. Is that the idea for today is not just about the review. It's to bring together a Black care experience network. And it looks like the people in the room. It's a diverse team of people who want to champion the Black Carer experience wherever you are in England. So if you want to be a part of the Black Carer Experience Network, just give your name to Donna at reception before you leave, or you can email us and we'll carry this on, because there are pockets of places where we need to be that champion, and we can't all do it. We live in London and we can't get to Norfolk and we can't get to Northampton, but there are people out there in the network that can get to those places, and you'll be a part of the Black Carer Experience Network, and that's all I can share as what's going to happen next today. And then I just want to say a big thank you to Josh McAllister, who came via Zoom today. The guest panel, Keely, David, Henrietta, and Rick, thank you so much for saying yes. Thank you to the conference manager, Juliet, where was she? Oh, she sat at the back. Thank you so much for keeping us on time. If anyone needs a conference manager, Juliet is the biz. Then I want to say thank you to my conference team, Donna. Thank you so much. Sanchia, Jade, and Jada, thank you, ladies. You're so care experienced, beautiful young people coming up. To my photographer, Jodine, who takes all my photographs. So anything you see on social media, Jodine takes all my photographs. To our AV, Steve, in the house, upstairs. Thank you so much, Steve. Shireen, who's downstairs, our therapeutic support. And I know some people have gone and seen her today, which is amazing. In partnership with the Transformed You, which is my organisation, I want to say thank you to Haringey. Beverly Hendricks was here today from the London Borough of Haringey Children's Services Department. So I want to thank them for, when I rang Beverly and said I want to do this conference, she said, I'm right beside you. So thank you for Haringey. You probably watch this later on. So thank you to Beverly and Haringey. And then the sponsors of this organisation, of this event. Now, ARC, which is where we've had this wonderful use of the building. I want to say thanks to Pastor Peter. He's somewhere in the building having a meeting. He was supposed to be here, but he double booked, so he's somewhere around having a meeting. So thanks for ARC for allowing us to use this building at no charge. And then also an organisation called Mind of My Own. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Mind of My Own. They create apps that help children using health, education, and care services to be heard so that their workers can help them make change happen. And how I got connected to Mind of My Own is that someone retweeted our tweet about the Black Carer Experience Conference. And then I got a call from a lady called Jill Thorburn, who is one of the directors, and just gave us a massive donation to make sure this happens. So I want to say thank you so much to Mind of My Own and their organisation. And then I also want to say thanks to everyone who donated via crowdfunder, because we couldn't have done this without people's donations. We raised, I think, 1,900 on crowdfunder, and I'm thankful for everybody who donated there. And then for everyone who tweeted, retweeted, posted, liked, and shared and emailed. And thank you to all of you who came. Like Henrietta said, it's Saturday. We could be somewhere else. I could be somewhere else. It's half term. I'm on a break now. But in the midst of my break, if we're passionate about making a change, we've sacrificed the time to do that. And I don't take you coming out here lightly. I thank you so much. So give yourselves a round of applause.